So the Mike Lindell. No, the FBI raid on Mike Lindell. We've got more information. Apparently, they're targeting him over damage to a protected computer and identity theft. Sounds a lot like BS, but of course, things have been getting pretty crazy with the FBI at the Washington bureau. They've been going after Trump. Now it's just getting worse. 40 subpoenas sent to Trump allies, and then we get the Mike Lindell thing. And so we're going to have to talk about that and get into great detail about what's happening at the highest levels of politics in this country. And we have another funny story that we talked about the other day, having to do with Trump and a secret meeting. And who was at that secret meeting on the golf course with Null Golf Clubs? And we can now formally debunk all of the insane lies that they pushed about this story. So that's going to be fun. And then the big news is that the rail workers are set to strike on Friday unless a deal gets approved at the last minute. But one of the unions, one of the biggest, has rejected the deal that Biden tried brokering. If this strike happens, it is going to impact every level. I mean, long-term trains for transport, Amtrak they're shutting those down. We're going to see $2 billion in economic damage per day. And this means your goods, stuff you might find at the store won't be there, or at least it'll be delayed. Nothing will happen for a few weeks, but then eventually you'll stop seeing the things you like and the prices are going to start going up. So this is big. And it is an apocalyptic scenario for Democrats right before the midterms, because even if it's not Joe Biden's fault, and the Democrats are trying to do a lot to stop this strike from happening, voters are just going to say the economy is bad. I'm going to vote for the other guy. So we're going to we will get into all of that. But before we do, my friends, head over to strongerbonesandlife.com. I'm sorry. No, I'm Eat Right and Feel Well. How did we have the wrong thing?
We're doing MCT?
EatRightAndFeelWell.com. I read the wrong URL. It's Keto Elevate C8 MCT oil powder. It's from BioTrust. We also do shout out BioTrust's collagen as well. But this is a medium chain triglyceride power you can add to your drinks. I like putting it in my coffee. It's actually really good. And my friends, since I started with keto, and now I'm in like a modified low carb kind of thing. Clearly I'm drinking coconut water, so there's some sugar back in my diet, but I dropped 30 pounds. No joke, legit 30 pounds. And it's with the help of BioTrust, no joke, literally. So head over to eatrightandfeelwell.com and you will get a 60-day money back guarantee. Keto Elevate provides your body only C8, the most ketogenic MCT. That means it provides support for energy levels, healthy appetite management, mental clarity and focus, athletic performance. And just I always talk to your doctor about this stuff, but I'll tell you my personal experience. When I cut out the sugars, I definitely felt like I had more energy. I felt like more mental clarity. I think it really did work tremendously. Keto Elevate, personally, it's my favorite MCT powder on the market today. And this is true because someone brought some over that was different and we tried it. Not a fan. You'll get free shipping on every order. And for every order today, BioTrust donates a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor through their partnership with NoKidHungry.org. To date, BioTrust has provided over 5 million meals to hungry kids. Please help BioTrust hit their goal of 6 million meals this year. You will also get free VIP live health and fitness coaching from BioTrust's team of expert nutrition and health coaches for life with every order, and their free e-report, the top 14 ketogenic foods with every order. I cut out the bread and the sugar, and I've never felt better. So check out eatrightandfeelwell.com. Shout out to BioTrust, and also don't forget to head over to timcast.com, become a member to support our work directly. And as a member, not only are you supporting our team of journalists who write the news and fact check it every day, and of course, we are NewsGuard certified. That's right. You'll also get access to our uncensored after show at 11 p.m. Those go up Monday through Thursday, and we're going to have a really good time tonight with a lot to talk about. Because joining us today, we have a couple really awesome guests. We have, also, real quick, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. And joining us today, Devin Nunes.
Great to be with you, Tim.
Who are you, Devin Nunes?
I am a confidential human informant for the FBI and also moonlight as CEO of True Social.
Oh.
Is that first one true?
We never know.
Well, okay, I'm going to assume it's true.
Yeah.
There's lots of conspiracy theories going on right now, so I might as well start a new one.
I heard you can
That's a great
teleport.
idea.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
Yeah.
He can.
He
That's
can,
right.
yeah.
I mean, the only way you can't teleport, the only way that would be true is if the news was wrong.
What?
And they're never wrong, so clearly you can teleport. We also have, returning to the show, Derek Harvey.
Good to be here.
And who are you, sir?
Derek Harvey, retired colonel, a candidate for Washington County Commissioner, and I used to work for Devin Nunes as his lead investigator.
And he can also teleport.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to know.
Because there's multiple stories about you guys teleporting.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. You guys got to tell me how to do that.
Yeah.
We also have...
We even got pictures on our phones of
Oh,
us
nice.
being in two places at the same time.
Cool.
Well, Either that or the media's wrong. We also got Luke Rudkowski.
FBI informant, you say? Get away from you there
nervous.
a little bit. My name's Luke Radowski of wearechange.org. Good to be back today. I'm wearing a new representation of Uncle Sam, but instead of Uncle Sam, it is an IRS agent saying we want your cut of our cut of your $601 Venmo transaction. If you like the shirt, you could get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Because you do, I'm here. Thank you so much for having me.
That shirt is awesome. I was telling Luke that I kind of need one of those later on. So I'm excited to get into the news today. Thrilled to have Devin and Derek. Let's get going.
So the first story we have is an update on what's happening with Mike Lindell. This story was crazy. It broke last night. You know, we're sitting here trying to do this show. I'm trying to talk about Ariel because the new movie, she's black. And there's a big controversy. And then all of a sudden, Luke is like, breaking news. We got to check it out. Mike Lindell had his phone seized by the FBI. So we have some updates. Post-Millennial reports the search warrant shows Mike Lindell phone seized in identity theft, damage of protected computer investigation. The search warrant for the phone seizure reveals that it was taken over an identity theft and damage. Okay, they're just repeating themselves. They say, we know this. Documents posted by Lindell reveal the purported reasoning. With a page titled, Items to be Seized, reading that the physical cellular telephone assigned number redacted. Lindell's cell phone and all records and information on the Lindell cell phone that constitutes fruits, evidence, or instrumentalities of identity theft, as well as intentional damage to a protected computer and or a conspiracy to commit identity theft and or to cause intentional damage to a protected computer. That's just crazy. I was talking to a guy earlier today, regular guy, just a regular guy, and he said, how are they getting away with this? How did they go after 40 subpoenas targeting Trump allies? And I just want to add to that. You'd think, we're going on year 7 of hoaxes targeting Trump and his allies. How does this keep happening? Why hasn't it stopped? It seems to be getting worse. But we're lucky enough to have you, Devin, and Derek, seemingly the experts on this, on what's going on. So you tell me, man, how do they keep doing this? How are they getting away with it?
You know what's interesting about Lindell especially is that he's a brilliant guy. I don't know if he's ever been on your show before, but he's absolutely brilliant. He's a brilliant marketer and passionate guy. And he's the frickin' MyPillow guy. Mm-hmm. He's funny. Everybody knows who he is because he's been on TV for so long. But I will tell you that this actually really happened. So I don't want people thinking that I'm an FBI informant. But I was talking to him just in the last, about a week ago. And I was laughing because I was actually just trying to get some pointers on True Social because we're beginning advertising. And I asked him, because he always wants to talk about election issues, which is fine. He's very passionate about it. And we were talking about the January 6th Commission and, how, I had said, look, what I've said from the very beginning of that is that, rioting's not okay, breaking in the Capitol's not okay, but where's the 14,000 hours of videotape? And he tells me, that I've never gotten, this is what Mike Lindell told me just a week ago, and I'm paraphrasing, but I've never been contacted by anyone for any of this, for all the stuff that he said out there. So, and then he shouldn't have went to that Hardee's, I guess.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hardee's is a bad place to go for that.
Well, Tim, trying to answer your question here, the first thing I thought about was in 2017 on MSNBC, Chuck Schumer went on national television and said that the intelligence agencies have, quote, 6 waves from Sunday to get back at you. And he was hinting at the intelligence agencies doing a revenge plot against Donald Trump. Do you think there's some merit to this, especially from your information from the inside, that this is the intelligence agencies hitting back against Trump with the battles that were happening within the White House?
Well, they were already weaponized before
Absolutely.
that. So when Schumer says that, remember, so he probably already knows because it was the Democratic Party Clinton campaign that paid for this whole operation that probably started in 2015. So Schumer probably already knows when he makes that very infamous statement that, of course, is seen by 30-40% of the country, but the rest of the country doesn't know it exists.
Also, what are the things that the FBI has chosen not to do? They're looking at identity theft and putting resources into that when they didn't touch the Hunter Biden laptop. They didn't look at the thousands of assaults on federal officers in Portland and other places during 2020. the Chinese, they're pulled back from investigating Chinese financial crimes and ripping off billions of dollars from American individual investors. I mean, one could go on.
The Maxwell client list? I could go on too. Sorry.
Yeah,
I just needed to interrupt you. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean,
well, I'm only here because I know that there's one person at this table that's been to Epstein Island.
That's correct.
I have to explain myself very carefully. I didn't go as... Again, I'm tired of even explaining it.
Think about it, did you? So I love introducing Luke to people, and I'm like, he's been to Epstein Island.
And I'm like,
and then everyone just gives him this
Here
look
we
like...
go.
Side-eyed, like, look at this.
what was it like? What was it like?
Creepy. Extremely creepy. Very... I was sweating, running around, trying to videotape as much as I could. Very bad juju. Very
Luke,
bad energy.
Just to clarify, stormed the island after
Yes.
the fact to
Afterwards,
film and
yeah.
document what was there. He was not an invited guest.
Yes. Thank you.
An amphibious assault.
Yeah, that's right.
Ran out of there. Got chased out.
But you got to see the look on people's faces when I'm like, "Oh, Luke's been to Epstein Island."
It
Just
happens
like
at
their
parties,
face goes blank.
and I don't even. The first time you caught me, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then people started looking at me. I just anyway.
So you're a Democrat. All the Democrats visited there.
Not always. I mean, there were. I mean, if you look at a lot of the people, it's bipartisan when it comes to the larger
really?
trafficking and extortion operation that was pretty much run by Epstein. A lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats. I mean, a lot of people intricately involved in our current political system. Even Trump appointees that had to resign because of them giving the sweetheart deal to, of course, Epstein and letting him get away for horrible crimes. And the FBI also, most notably, was interviewing victims of his all the way in the 90s, and the FBI chose to ignore the victims, not help the victims that were coming forward, as police officers, federal agents, prosecutors were all looking away and essentially aiding and abetting into what was hurting children in unspeakable ways that we can't even describe here on this broadcast.
So we have a pattern here.
Absolutely.
If you look at the gymnastic investigation that went nowhere too.
Exactly. And the client list still wasn't released, and Ghislaine Maxwell went down for a crime where she had no clients. Which is absolutely mind-boggling. But
She was just like trafficking kids into like a boat and then kicking it out into the water and
Black
just
hole,
walking away.
yeah.
It was like just
But we could talk about
exile.
intelligence agency corruption all day. I think it's interesting to see what's happening from the inside, especially from the intelligence committees. That's why I asked you that question, how this is playing out, what's happening here. What do you think is the motive here? Is it legitimately investigating a crime, or do you think this is something bigger, something more of a conspiracy?
Yeah, I don't know how we can get into this right now. Maybe talk about it later too. But we thought, at least when we unraveled the Russia hoax at the very beginning, so we're talking 2017 and 18. We thought at that point that we had been able to effectively kind of solder the wounds, stop the bleeding. The Mueller nonsense with his top lawyer,
Andrew
Wiseman. We thought, okay, we stopped all that. Barr came in, Durham came in, and I'm sure we'll get to the Durham investigation at some point too. But we thought at least the Lovebirds were gone, Strzok, Page, all of that.
Yeah.
And Ray was at least saying the right things, that there'll be some healing period. We're trying to do everything right. He always said the right things. But clearly what has happened is that there has been a Gestapo-like get Trump crew that's been created within the National Security Division of the Department of Justice and the FBI. And look, we kind of know that now because if you were involved in the Russia hoax, the pre-planning and the implementation in 15 and 16, you now got a promotion and you're at the top levels of the Department of Justice right now. So that really happened. And then, this whole Tibu guy that came out that was escorted out a couple weeks ago, FBI guy, what they're doing is they're running it with the National Security Division. And this is important for the audience to know. There's a division in there called counterintelligence. And the way the rules and the regs work is within counterintelligence, they're able to wall everybody off within the FBI and DOJ. Say, counterintelligence investigation, can't talk about it. And that's how they effectively hid a lot of this from us, which we'll probably get into this later. But that's why I made the joke at the outset. This is why they brought Danchenko, who was the fake, phony Russian source for the dossier. It's why the FBI brought him in, was to hide him from Congress, hide him from our investigation.
You know what your biggest challenge is? There is so much to understand, to unravel everything that's happening. that the average person can't absorb it in a few minutes.
Right.
You know,
That's why I came on the show, because it's like 2 hours plus. So.
2 hours, so we'll just get a list of names. We'll go through it. We'll give everyone's bio.
Have you ever seen those crazy maps, like the charts?
I was just going to say, let's get the bulletin board out there and the pins right now.
Epoch Times has like a full-blown poster of this thing with all the players.
Wow. the crime web with the red yarn or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's
it's
actually quite good.
And it's important to understand, it's not just the FBI here, as you mentioned, but the FBI also influencing the corporate media and large institutions like Wikipedia and the Washington Post that were playing defense for the intelligence agencies, regurgitating everything they were saying, criticizing, attacking you for calling out the clear lies, clearing out, and then also journalists. I was listed on a Washington Post story as fake Russian news because I didn't believe, I wanted to see evidence of this Russian collusion. I said, okay, if you think that there was Russian collusion, let's present us with some evidence, but we can't believe the intelligence agencies since, of course, they lie routinely to the American people. They lied about WMDs, they lied about so many different things that I could mention here, Iran-Contra, we could keep going on and on and on. And I was like, there's no reason to believe these guys. Because of that, I was put on a list, I was ostracized, and I was depersoned from Wikipedia for even asking questions.
Well, now what they've become very good at is they just control the whole process. So, not too far away from here, in the Washington D.C. Beltway, it's become bigger and bigger and bigger. And Colonel Harvey can tell you that that's been probably the biggest downfall. We created this new superstructure after 9/11. We brought a lot more bureaucracy in, a lot more bureaucrats, and we're so much less focused on actually, finding and taking care of hard targets that are definitely a danger to the United States. And everything can now be manipulated. Because remember, the quick answer for everything now is, we're going to have a DNI do a report. Well, of course, if it's a report that supports the Democrats or the left, it always comes out exactly the way that they want it to come out. And of course, if it's a report that actually goes after the Democrats for their whatever it may be, like for the Rush Oaks, for example, it took the Inspector General 2 years to come out with this. Then it took Durham to be appointed, and now Durham's had 2 indictments, and now we're still waiting.
Yeah, there was a New York Times article about that today saying that the Durham report is not going to lead to anything substantial. Do you think the New York Times perspective on it is correct, or would you question that new article that just came out? I don't know if you're aware of the article.
Well, I don't read fake news. Yeah. And so I actually don't even push on the websites, except if they attack me, then I'll evaluate it and see what it is. But look, I've actually, and Colonel Harvey maybe has a different opinion than me, but I've actually been very supportive of the Durham investigation because it's the only investigation that I've seen in my entire 2 decades that I spent in Washington with 0 leaks. And that gives me quite a bit of confidence, and he's got to a lot of information that we didn't even get to.
One of the things, the New York Times gets its information from FBI sources. The FBI uses the New York Times, Washington Post. They put a story out there, and then they use that story in the New York Times to start an investigation.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
And it goes like that. And there's that relationship.
You guys talk about it all the time on this show. You guys talk about narrative building.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it is. It's
That's
narrative
the game,
building.
man. I'm interested to see what happens with the Durham investigation, but I got to be honest, it's taken so long. We haven't seen a whole lot that I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith, but I wonder if maybe the reason we're seeing them go so heavily now after Trump allies, these 40 subpoenas, could it be because they're worried they're running out of time?
Well, look, if you want to, let's talk about the Mar-a-Lago raid, because all roads, you can keep it simple. All roads basically lead back to Russiagate. I mean, pretty much all roads lead to Russiagate, right? Even the impeachment hoax on Ukraine was still Russiagate, same players. So if you've had Kash Patel on the show before, so the one thing that we learned throughout our investigation is that the FBI, DOJ, they love to use fake news to go into their affidavits, into their warrants. Well, the first thing I noticed when I read that affidavit, and the Inspector General has said you shouldn't do it, and then when they released the warrant and the affidavit, there was 2 stories. Essentially, that was all that was. The only thing unredacted were 2 news stories. Now, I've never seen FBI, DOJ in all my time ever use a Breitbart story, right? Because they consider Breitbart to be fake news. But for the first time in my life, they used Breitbart, right? And in it was Kash Patel. And Kash Patel, they completely take what he says out of context. What he says is that he's seen the intelligence reports relating to the Russia hoax that were declassified and we've never seen. They basically misconstrue that. We don't see everything below it. But what Cash is clearly talking about there is he's talking about the documents that I've seen, Derek's seen, we've all seen. We didn't see them at Mar-a-Lago. We saw them when we were in Congress, or we were at the
CIA.
or at the White House. We saw all those documents. They're supposed to be declassified. They're using that out of context. They're using to play these games. And the other story, of course, was a local news agency that saw some white vans pull into Mar-a-Lago.
Saw that, yeah.
Yeah. Moving boxes or something.
Yes.
Back to Durham real quick, Tim. You know, I worry that Durham is going after people like Deschenko and Kleinsmith for false document issues, but he's not going to go after the root of the problem, which is in the FBI itself.
The Trump sleeper cell. Or maybe not.
It's the National Security Division.
Yeah.
And their enablers over at the DOJ.
Yeah.
How worried should we be? I mean, are we going to see Republicans win in November and then maybe do something about this? Or are they not going to be able to do anything until the executive branch changes?
Look, I think for the first time that I've seen, people are really pissed off out there. I mean, just, if I travel across the country and you see it, I mean, people are really, really concerned, and they should be. I mean, I can't say that it shocked me that they raided Mar-a-Lago, but man, this is really Banana Republic time.
I want to show you guys this story from the Daily News because it's kind of silly, but it's also kind of freaky. Hardee's seizes on Mike Lindell's FBI drama to sell pillowy biscuits. No joke. The fast food chain, what is this? Hardy har. Thanks, Daily News. Mm-hmm. Fast food chain Hardee's seized on being included in the headlines about alleged confiscation of MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell's cell phone with an ad promoting something the bombastic businessman might enjoy. Now that you know we exist, you should really try our pillowy biscuits.
Fair.
Lindell, a spirited conspiracy theorist who has worked tirelessly, blah, blah, blah. The point here is we're at the point where fast food chains are making memes of the collapse of our country to sell fast food.
Those biscuits are a little tasteless,
Yeah,
in
so
my
dry.
opinion. But I make jokes, references to gulags, just kind of being sensationalistic and hyperbolic. But am I that far away? I mean, where do you see the road ending with this? Because we see the groundwork being laid down by Hillary Clinton, by Joe Biden, by Kamala Harris, by Congressman Tim Ryan today, saying very hyperbolic statements against the MAGA Republicans. Where does this end? Because I think they just started, and I think they're just laying down the groundwork for something very serious that could be very dangerous for everyone.
The White House spokesperson said that if you disagree with them, you're an extremist.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they are trying to criminalize all political disagreement.
Yeah. Look,
Yeah.
I'm a happy warrior, and so I don't want us to all go out and jump out of the building here. I just think that but it is very, very serious without question. We are at a time where we've never been in this country. And I think if people don't take it seriously, which I think they are across the country, but I can guarantee you the Beltway doesn't understand what's going on. They don't understand the anger when you get out to this. I mean, look, you're not very far outside of
It's MAGA
of the
country out
swamp.
here.
And you can tell. I mean, people. I was at an event earlier tonight. I mean, people are scared. People are pissed, and that's what's happening. So you have essentially a split in this country. It's not so much red states, blue states. It's city states versus the rest of America. Mm-hmm. So it just depends. Like here in Maryland, it's a blue state largely because Baltimore, right? And the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Everywhere else, red and getting redder. And the same thing is true in my part of California, where I'm from. I'm halfway between L.A. and San Francisco. So look, I want to be positive. I want to believe in the Constitution. But clearly, look, I left Congress, not because I needed a new job and Trump didn't need a new company, but it's pretty bad when I got to leave Congress solely because I believe that the communications platforms are so broken that we have no way to get our message out. We can't even communicate with one another, and we're in the middle of a propaganda war that's destroying this country, where it's pushing city states moving hard left and everybody else moving hard right. and that hard and when I say hard right, meaning conservative, where they can't even communicate with one another, and we're constantly dealing with fake news
and censorship.
I don't even think it's moving hard right. I mean, my politics are basically in the same spot they've always been, except on Second Amendment. I think for a lot of people, especially people in my situation, it's that the left has just continually gone further and further left. Elon Musk posted that meme. You saw it, I'd imagine, where, do you see this one? It's like left and right, and then a few years later, left and move. But he's staying in the same spot, and it's just moving further and further left. The left likes to use that and say, see, this proves it. If you still believe the same things you did 10 years ago, you are conservative. You're traditionalist. You're not progressive. That's their argument. So they're actually saying, yeah, we agree with that. You are now on the right. It has changed. But I got to tell you, man, what's really scary is I know people that I used to consider friends, and they've gone insane. They've actually gone insane. The things they believe every hoax from the media. They believe Jussie Smollett. Whoops, that was a hoax. They believe the Russiagate stuff. They believe hands up, don't shoot. They believe the Ahmaud Arbery story. They believe the Trayvon Martin stuff. They believed all of that. And even after all of that, the Covington Catholic kids, even after all of that is debunked and the media is shown, they still believe it. We know those stories are fake. They still believe the lies every day.
Right.
And they're full of anger is the crazy thing. The messages I see on Facebook, there's a few people I've known my whole life who still, like, they're very liberal, they're very anti-Trump, but they still talk to me and they still listen to me and they go, oh, I didn't know that. And good friends. But I know some people that they've gone nuts. And I'm wondering if you guys have experienced the same thing, like people who've become totally just, I don't even want to say Trump derangement. It's like, it's right-wing derangement, but it's not even that. It's if you're outside of the cult, they just believe whatever they're told by the media.
Yeah. Well, maybe a good example for you is this. So when I was elected to Congress 2002, Bernie Sanders was in the House of Representatives. A lot of people forgot that he was actually a member of the House for a very long time. And I remember a lot of the first votes. I'd look up on the screen. There's always a lot of votes, and a lot of them are a lot of bills that get through. They don't always become law, but they're sometimes they're just messaging bills. But you would have something like, baseball and apple pie, some feel good thing, and you'd look up on the screen and there'd be like 20 no votes. Like, okay, and who are those people? And it would be Bernie Sanders and this hard left wing caucus. And it was constantly, they were like, equivalent of backbenchers like you would see in a parliamentary system where they just didn't have any friends. Nobody really took them serious. The Democrats laughed at them, right? Because at that point, I had friends on the other side of the aisle, people that I would talk to, and that's the crazy people, And now
they're in charge.
They're in charge. And there's not 20 that aren't, full-fledged Marxists in one way or another.
Wow.
Or at least they have to pretend that they are. And that's
right.
really what this is. It's all about power. It's all about how do you get and keep and hold power. And that's what I saw during my time in Washington. And I got to the point where, like, when I knew we were in trouble, and I was one of the first guys to go to Parler, and I was one of the first guys to go to Rumble, because I caught the fake news and the social media companies shadow banning me. So I went to these new platforms and I realized quickly, like, man, I grew like followers like no tomorrow. And then of course Parler got nuked by big tech.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
And the rest is history.
How is that legal? It was collusion. It had to be some kind of, there's got to be some kind of antitrust action or something to stop this kind of collusion in the market.
Yeah, but then they went to court. I don't know where those cases are now, but you have to go. In many cases, they go to court in their home court. So even the court, this has even reached the courts.
But where's the DOJ and the FBI investigating this and subpoenaing and going in and confiscating cell phones and computers and laptops? Okay,
Yeah.
To build a case, to look for the crime.
Yeah. Well, look, it ultimately ends up with Supreme Court justices, something leaking unprecedented history, a decision pre-leaks out, right, that we still haven't got to the bottom of. And then they're out protesting and threatening Supreme Court justices' homes, which should be illegal.
When it comes from all the work you've done, who has more influence and power, the intelligence agencies or big tech social media? And do the intelligence agencies affect big tech social media?
So remember, the intelligence agencies aren't what is corrupt here. It is the the people at the high echelons of the Democratic Party apparatus that are running those intelligence agencies, right? So they control all the levers of power. Does that make sense? It's the Democrats. And the Democrats are then sending messaging to the fake news, right? Because all the fake news, they'll come out, boom, one day, narratives out there over and over again, they pound away. And then,
but then what happened
it's
with
tough
Trump?
to tell with it. And then
but Trump was in office, and then the intelligence agencies were working against him. So,
because he didn't control. No,
That's kind of
when a Republican, we have no power. I mean, when Republicans get in, they can't control it anymore. It's like it's because what happens is they put their people in, they burrow them in. Right.
But you're saying that the FBI, that these intelligence agencies, or at least parts of them, have gone rogue.
Well, they've been recruited.
They
don't answer to the commander in chief. Then they've basically gone rogue.
They've recruited and they promoted and retained people that fit a political narrative, that come from a certain type of school, that think a certain way, that reflect the woke agenda. And in this last Congress, we saw the Democrats trying to push that type of woke recruitment and ideological perspective throughout more of the intelligence agencies, mandating it.
And look, part of the reason why is it's hard to get, we talked about city-states a little bit ago. It's hard to get Republicans to say, boy, I'd really like to go make a career and live in Washington, D.C., and burrow myself in, get connected, go to the Brookings Institute, write reports, go work for Congress, become a lobbyist, and always working. I mean, Republicans, for the most part, don't want to do that, right? They want to live in rural Maryland, right? Or they want to live in rural America.
But just back to the question, who has more power and influence?
Well, I would say they're all one, I guess, is the short answer.
Yikes.
Yeah. No,
they're all kind of one.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's something I've been saying for years now, and a lot of people don't understand that there really isn't much of a difference when it comes to the decisions, the major ones that they make.
Well, now we're getting evidence in these lawsuits that the federal government was directing big tech to censor people they didn't like.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And it's been a cascade. We've gotten a little bit here, and now it's full swing. Now we've got emails where I think Alex Berenson, that's his name, that's a journalist, right?
Yep.
Where they're like, why hasn't he been banned yet, Twitter? And then Twitter's like, okay, and then he gets banned.
Dr.
Come
Fauci,
on, man.
Dr. Fauci parody accounts got hit because the White House demanded them to.
Wild.
That is absolutely crazy.
Hey, I think you guys, I might have heard you guys talk about this the other bit, but there's some, and this sounds ridiculous because, but I'm a, guy that's been in political business and now running True Social. So I'm not attuned to this stuff like you guys are, but I had never heard of this guy named Andrew Tate. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of the guy before, right? I mean, until like a few weeks ago. And how is it possible? It's very similar to the Parler thing, right? Where overnight Parler, boom, gets nuked by 30, 40 companies, right? They get canceled by everyone. Well, the same thing, I never heard of this Andrew Tate guy, but it's so odd that everybody canceled him. Like he got nuked from every platform within what, 48 hours?
Yep.
It's collusion.
Yeah.
They all live in the same area. They all work in the same area.
Yes. Emails, processors, website, everything got taken away from him.
I want to talk to you guys about the fake news because this is a really funny story and we have the ability to debunk it. We have the story from thetimes.co.uk. Quote, just like a mob meeting.
What?
Trump's curious golf course confab sets tongues wagging. What was this? Donald Trump having a secret meeting on a golf course with no golf clubs? I wonder who was at the secret meeting. Well, Newsweek reports something about rumors that those who joined Trump at the course, of course, were Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of Fox News, Sean Hannity, and former Congressman turned CEO of Truth Social, Devin Nunes. Wait a minute.
Dun, dun.
Well, that's just rumors. What about this? Raw story. Correction. A previous version of the story alleged that Devin Nunes, Kevin McCarthy. Oh, okay. All right. Well, what about this Daily Dot? The Daily Dot just points out with a tweet. They don't actually state it themselves. He has not been photographed golfing. He's photographed with McCarthy, Nunes, Eric, Trusty, Hannity, and others standing in the rain on a golf course with no clubs and no golf shoes. Apparently, that tweet was enough to get Raw Story to report that it was a fact and for Newsweek to run the rumor that these people were there. This would have to mean, Mr. Nunes, that you can in fact teleport.
Yes. Actually, I'm there. If you look in the tree, see that picture there?
In the tree.
In the tree.
If you just look
Okay.
behind there,
Hiding.
you
That
can't.
right there.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
So
a skilly
so
suit.
see they were close but wrong. So this is funny because this story went viral. They claimed all these people were there. You weren't there.
No. In fact, it was. So I was actually commuting from California back east, and I was actually headed to Washington D.C. And I had a long delay in Dallas. At the Dallas airport, I got, like everybody's getting now, but I ended up supposed to be there 2 hours. I was there like 6 hours.
So you're in Dallas. How did you feel when you found out you were actually in DC on a golf course?
Well, that's at night. All of a sudden, my phone blows up with these stories. And then I'm like, what in the hell is this? And then I'm reading, and I don't even know what the hell's going on. And I'm trying to get on, and then I get on the airplane, and then I fly, and then I don't get into Washington until it was actually 2:30 when I landed, a.m. And then the next morning, my phone is blowing up. I'm like, what in the hell is this? So yeah, I was clearly right there in those trees.
Yeah.
So I was in Dallas and there at the same time.
Magical.
Well, people need to understand that the issue is if you jumped from Dallas to DC, then the Paladins would track you down, tracing your jump scar, and it'd be very dangerous for jumpers like Devin.
What's that from?
It's from Jumper.
Okay.
It's a movie about people who can teleport.
Yeah.
I wonder who got that reference. Hayden Christensen, I think, was in it. He was the main guy, right?
I don't know that movie. I was thinking of the dude from the X-Men that could teleport.
Oh,
Morph?
Yeah.
No, not Morph. Nightcrawler. Why did
Yeah.
I think Morph? Why did I say that? That was
Yeah, he was a good character, by the way. I don't know what
Nightcrawler?
he only made it in like a couple of the X-Men movies.
Nightcrawler?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. His fight scene in X-Men 2 was awesome.
Yeah.
Fighting and teleporting at the same time.
Yeah.
So this is amazing.
But he like
because-
disappeared. Like he's not. He wasn't in the
Well, they rebooted him.
the last movies.
Is he not in it? They rebooted
I
it.
only saw him like twice.
I think he might be, he's a good character.
Are they
but-
going to bring him back?
I have no idea.
Well,
But,
did you know Colonel Harvey is like a Nightcrawler too?
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Teleport
because you
too.
guys were able to. This was a bigger jump. You went from where? From Italy or from where were you?
We were meeting dirty Russians and Ukrainians in where were we?
Vienna. We're in Vienna.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So okay.
Yes.
So the media claims you were in
The
Vienna.
story's still up, by the way. You can go to
it
CNN.
is.
The story's up. I'm not making this up. You can.
And the crazy left believes it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's still up. It hasn't been taken down.
Blue and on.
There it is.
Oh, yeah. Is this one the Giuliani associate willing to tell Congress Nunes met with ex-Ukrainian official to get dirt in Biden?
Yep, that's the one.
This is amazing. It's amazing. These journalists don't bother asking you; they just run it. I mean, I'm saying that more rhetorically. I don't know if they literally called you over this, but I've dealt with stories. What happens is one journalist will write a fake story. They'll wait 15 minutes and then redact. They'll stealth edit it. But by then, all the other outlets will have already picked it up and take plausible deniability and say, we weren't, there's no actual malice. We were just repeating what, NBC or what this other outlet said.
Yeah.
So we assumed it was true.
I would love to go to Vienna, Austria. I've never been there, ever.
Well, we know this. So this story actually. So these guys. So I sued CNN, and they skated right. And so the fake news will report that I lost this lawsuit, but what they do is they use technicalities, and so they got a judge to agree that even though this all occurred and impacted me in Washington D.C., with intelligence agencies overseas. And how they got out of it is they said that no, California law applied, and I didn't do my retraction notice in time. That's how they got out of this. That's why that story is still alive.
CNN's California based.
No.
No.
Unprecedented, never been done before.
You're in California, that's
a
why.
judge ultimately got transferred. The case got, long story, but it got transferred to New York, and a New York judge, Democrat appointed judge, said for the first time that I know of that California law applies to me, even though I was a federal official, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee in Washington.
But
It's
look,
madness. That's how they get out of it.
It's not just that. It's that the story is that Giuliani associate is willing to tell Congress that you did this. And they're like, well, that's a factual statement. It doesn't mean it actually happened. It means someone is willing to say it happened. That is, like, you want to know how it works? I love this. You'll get a story and it'll say source close to Nancy Pelosi's office claims that, she's planning to meet with Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump or something. And then people go, oh, wow, a source close to her office. And the source close to her office is a homeless guy sleeping in the alley. He is close to her office. That was all true.
Correct.
Can't sue him for fake news because it's literally the truth. And
Well,
the
this-
truth is an affirmative defense.
The funny thing about this guy is, though, this guy, these CNN and these reporters So this is a guy named Parnas, who he had tried to so Colonel Harvey was my investigator, right? So when people would have, when they would have things that they wanted us to look at, and we would take all comers, right? So Derek would have to meet everyone. Well, this guy came to us and said, he had all kinds of information. Of course, he didn't have anything, and so Derek met with him a couple times, and then this guy, he was described by CNN as a wolf in sheep's clothing. So they know he's a liar. He's now in jail, by the way.
Yeah,
he's now in jail. And this guy went on, and the Democrats would repeat this garbage about me, about Derek, and they knew. So when you talk about teleporting, we were actually, it's kind of funny, and we later were able to say this because I filed it in court. We were actually in Libya. So what must have happened is they leaked that they knew we were on international travel because we were traveling on behalf of the government, and we were the first delegation.
I think someone from HPSI leaked it.
Probably so.
Adam Schiff's people.
Yeah, but we were actually in Libya, meeting with Haftar. Pretty damn dangerous place. We were in Benghazi.
Wow.
We were in Benghazi, and these bastards run this story, and they run this story, to just dirty us up.
And they didn't bother asking you.
I don't even remember if they did or not. I think they asked for an interview. But what I do after 2017, when they accused me of being a Russian agent, like if you accuse me of being a Russian agent, like until you retract that story, I don't talk to you.
Yeah.
Sure.
And with
I'm not going to talk to them.
And with Lev Parnas, I investigated. I looked at all the information, made a few inquiries over a period of 6 weeks. Because it wasn't constant. It's just intermittent over a period of time because you got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I came to Devin. I said, this is a dead end. This guy's not trustworthy.
Yeah. And then they released, I don't know if you guys remember, this is when Schiff released my phone records.
That's right.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
Also John Solomon too, right?
Yeah, a bunch of people. He
that's
released a bunch of those
crazy.
phone numbers. Yeah. So, and we couldn't, if you call back in the day, and this is how all members of Congress, I think, if they're doing their job, if somebody calls in, like if you were to call in to your congressman's office today, hopefully you would get a call back within 2 or 3 days. And so so in this case, poor Harvey was, this guy calls in, I tell Harvey to call the guy, and then all of a sudden, these phone records are released as if Harvey's now done something bad because he's just calling somebody back that had information that said was relevant. That's his job.
Yeah. That's crazy that he released the private information of a journalist.
Yeah. How about me, his colleague? And
Well,
him?
yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
But,
Have you had John Solomon on, by the way?
Not
Ever?
yet.
No.
Not yet.
Well, he's great.
How was the trip to Libya, though? Right? That place isn't really known for its international visitors.
How would you describe it? It kind of looked like a hellscape.
A little surreal. A little
Yeah.
surreal.
I mean, slavery.
It kind of looked when we landed there was the Russians were on one side of the
boy.
airport.
Yeah.
Strong start.
And then, but it did look like, I thought I saw the devil out there with a pitchfork and a sign that said, "Welcome to hell."
Oh,
I
now
thought
we
I
got
saw
the
it.
conspiracy. We're working with the Russians. We really went to Benghazi to work with the Russians.
There you go. Heard it here
Well,
first.
now you're admitting it.
Yeah.
How did Russia come to be the villain, Is it because of the pipeline? Is it because of Gazprom? Is it because of Ukraine? Because I certainly think China's a bigger threat.
Oh no, they loved Russia. Okay, so this is the damn, everybody asked me how did you know that the Russia stuff was nonsense? It was really easy, and of course the fake news has ignored this the whole time. So in 2013 or 12, 13, 14, the Russians were pushing Obama around. And remember, I'm on the intelligence committee. I worked really closely with our Eastern European allies like Poland and Romania and others. And remember, the Russians, suddenly they were in Libya doing everything. Suddenly they were in Syria doing things. Suddenly they overtake Crimea with little green men. So I'm involved in all this, and we couldn't get the Obama administration to do a damn thing. They would not do anything to the Russians. They just wouldn't deal with them. So you can imagine. So in the spring of 2016, and just for your the time reference, this is when the Obama-Biden administration are working with the Clinton campaign that began investigating Trump and Republicans to tie them to Russia. Okay, I have no idea that's going on, but in the spring of 2016, I went out and made, which is a really important statement at the time. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee said, "Look, The biggest intelligence failure since 9/11 is our failure to understand Putin's plans and intentions. So this is the biggest intelligence failure since then. So I say that at the same time that they are painting us with being some kind of Russian agent. So you can imagine after the election when they come and say, oh, the Russians were trying to help Trump and the Republicans. What the hell are you talking about? You guys haven't done any damn thing about Russia. I said, this is a lie. I've never seen, because I was actually paying attention to what Putin was doing. They weren't.
Yeah. Well, Putin was building his sphere of influence and alliance with the Syrian government. But when Barack Obama was in power, there was even serious talks of Barack Obama potentially launching an invasion or an attack on Syria. And then it was General Flynn that came out and actually whistleblowed and talked about how the United States was funding radical Islamists inside of that region. And I think there's been a massive payback against him for that. So there's a lot of also complicated geopolitical maneuvers in all of this. If you remember, I remember the Russians also intervened and sent their battleships to prevent U.S. warships from being off the coast of Syria, from potentially launching more missile strikes. I remember there was protests there. What do you remember for that? What do you remember from that time? Because a lot of people thought we were very close to a war with Syria.
I think you're actually missing one of the most important data points. Do you remember the time that Obama leaned over before the election when he was running against Mitt Romney, and at the time he was talking to the Russian president, which I can't think of his name now,
Medvedev.
Yep. And he said, and he's on a hot mic, and he says,
Yes.
"Tell Vladimir I have to wait till after the election, or something like that."
I'll have more flexibility.
Yeah, more flexibility.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest issue.
Collusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the classification narrative they're doing now, because the implication is the president doesn't have the ability to declassify documents unilaterally. And the point I make is, imagine the president of the United States meeting with the president of Russia and them saying it's time to negotiate a de-escalation of these nuclear weapons. And he goes, I wish I could, but I don't have the ability to declassify what our weapons are, so I can't tell you. It's classified, sorry. Maybe there's some higher authority in the United States that can tell me what I'm allowed to tell you, and then we'll negotiate. That's an insane prospect.
Well, that's what we dealt with. I mean, that's why people have to remember in 2017, we knew nearly right away. I just went through the story of how I knew, why I knew. I knew they were full of shit, but I definitely knew that this was a problem when I found out that the Clinton campaign, had paid for this dossier. And you know how long it took?
Crazy.
You know how long it took for us to get that out to the public? We knew that for 9 months.
And you couldn't release it?
No, if you remember, they were trying to investigate me.
Yeah.
Remember, they put me under an ethics investigation? Remember that? They were going after all of my team, all of our lawyers, everyone. So they were looking for any way. And remember, Trump is under investigation by Mueller, the Mueller witch hunt crew. So, I mean, they've got an army of G-men, DOJ, with a special counsel authority. I'm sitting there in Congress with under investigation because they said I was leaking intelligence. It took us that long to get that information out to the public. And if you go back in time, if you remember in that February timeframe of 2018, remember they said, people are gonna die if Nunes releases this memo. It's gonna be horrible. And then like the next day it came out, oh, this is no big deal. The Clinton campaign, everybody knew that.
Nice.
And they did. The fake news did know that the Clinton campaign, but none of us knew. The American public didn't know.
The attitudes, Tim, is so similar to, remember Vindman when he was testifying, and he basically said that the
Maybe for the audience, though, Vindman, you got to.
Vindman was the lieutenant colonel whistleblower.
Yeah.
Right.
Complainer that led to the Ukrainian impeachment issue, and he thought it was so important that the president was possibly betraying, and doing things that the interagency didn't want. Vindman said that the interagency dictates what the president should be doing. That it's not the president who determines foreign policy; it's the interagency.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy. Do you think that Vindman is a useful idiot, or do you think he's willfully malicious?
Both.
Both.
I was going to say an idiot who's malicious.
That's crazy.
He's not smart enough to be he's not very talented, but he's definitely a useful idiot.
Well, they wanted him to be the Minister of Defense for Ukraine, according to him.
Yeah.
Getting ready for the war.
But that's what shows you is a useful idiot. Those Ukrainians, they thought, here's a dumbass that we can bribe. Let's tell him that we want him to be the defense minister.
What do you guys think about the Joe Biden, if the prosecutor's not fired, that whole thing? I mean, do you guys know stuff that we don't? I've done quite a bit of research into the whole Ukraine Gate scandal. And it really does seem like right now, especially with Hunter Biden's laptop, that Joe Biden's involved in illicit business dealings, that he's using his son as a proxy. That's what it seems like. And I have to wonder now, with the billions that are being dumped into Ukraine, is this Joe Biden paying good on his debts?
I knew you were a Russian asset. That's what I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
You're repeating Russian disinformation.
That's right. Yeah, just real quick, I love how Politico reported, I think it was in early 2017, that Ukrainian officials colluded to help the Democrats win the election. Were embarrassed and scrambling now that Donald Trump won. And then a few years later, one of their reporters said, actually, that story was Russian disinformation, yet they still haven't retracted the initial report. How can your outlet simultaneously report both things?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, look, they haven't retracted that report, the one that's still up on the screen there.
Yeah.
Real quick on Burisma timeline. I'd just like to run through it real quick for you because I think it matters about the call for firing the prosecutor. The White House under Obama had a conference with Ukrainian officials in late January. And on the offsite of that conference at the old executive office building, they were addressing corruption, and they asked the state prosecutor representatives there to back off the Burisma investigation. A week later, back in Ukraine, they conducted a raid of the Burisma headquarters and the president of the Burisma company's home. That led to at least 8 phone calls over the next 10 days between President Biden and President Poroshenko of Ukraine, which then subsequently led to a trip coordinated by Eric Ciaramella to Ukraine, where they put the hammer down saying, we need the investigation of Burisma ended. They masked it under corruption, saying that the state's attorney was corrupt. That's when they threatened to withhold IMF funding. That same prosecutor that they're asking to be fired for corruption had gotten an award from the United States at the end of 2015 for being a stellar prosecutor.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we would have, the Hunter Biden laptop, I mean, if you and I and your team here decide tonight that we're just going to start doing crack cocaine, bringing some prostitutes or whatever, the FBI will be knocking on your door tomorrow morning.
Yeah, lying on our taxes, lying on the government gun form.
Throwing a gun in the garbage outside of a school? Behind a school or something? That's crazy.
Show some guns here, do some crack, and they'll be here in 24 hours.
Here's a big story that's almost, over 5 years old now, almost 6 years old, from Politico. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. You heard it right here from NewsGuard certified Politico.
100.
100. Yes. Woo. Check it out. And they say Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter, only to back away after the election. And they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a Politico investigation found. Kenneth P. Vogel and David Stern. Yeah. How is this story still on Politico when they later came out? I think it was Politico EU was reporting from, I believe, I could be wrong, Natasha Bertrand, saying this story was in fact Russian disinformation. Yet it's still up right now.
Yeah, and we Derek and I, we know a lot about this story because we brought this story up over and over and over again during the Ukraine impeachment hoax. I mean, this is one of the stories that proves that it's a hoax. The whole first impeachment of Trump was a hoax. It was, I mean, they accused Trump of what they had done.
Exactly. So Joe Biden, I love this. We had a guest on the show. I'll give him the courtesy of not saying his name, but people know who it was. We had this younger guy. He was like a anti-woke guy, and then he went liberal. And we're sitting down, we're talking to him, and I said, Joe Biden sitting at his meeting. What was it, Luke? Was it Atlantic Council or was it CFR?
With Joe Biden talking about the
Burisma
big
thing?
Yep, that was CFR.
CFR.
With
Council on
Richard
Foreign
Haas,
Relations.
the president of the CFR.
Look at this guy.
There.
He's like encyclopedia on these meetings.
The CFR, bad people.
So Joe Biden says, I told them, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion. And they said, what? You can't. You have no authority. I said, call the president. See what he says. He said, I look at my watch. You got 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, SOB. Guy got fired. And I'm like, so an illegal quid pro quo? The vice president has no authority to override certified loan guarantees from the U.S. government. He can't do that. He did it. They accused Trump of doing that. Trump never asked for anything. But this is what Joe Biden literally did. Amazing. And here he is now sitting as president.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump stumbles upon this. In my opinion, I don't think Trump knew all that much about what was going on. I think Trump saw a Twitter video of Joe Biden saying this that went viral because the phone call transcript was funny. He's like, what is this thing, with Biden saying the loans? Why don't you look into that?
Right.
He didn't even know what he was talking about. And then they probably panicked like, no, we can't have him digging into that. Impeach. It's amazing. Biden was not running for office at the time. And the media ran with Trump as targeting his rival. Like, rival? Joe Biden? The dude is old and not running for office. Nobody thought he would. I think some people speculated he would run, but there was no definitive answer whether he would. But that's the angle they went with. Donald Trump stumbled upon some very serious corruption. And I think people need to understand this. What's happening in Ukraine, I think, has long been planned. I was there on the ground in the end of 2013, and I think it was end of 2013 when the Maidan protests were starting. Then it was a few months later, I had left. They ousted Yanukovych. This was an escalation that had been happening quite a bit. Russia takes Crimea. Donald Trump gets elected. Everything stops. Donald Trump loses. Joe Biden is now president. Russia conflict Ukraine starts up again. It's amazing how that happened. How if you just use a modicum of common sense, that when Barack Obama is in office, this conflict is escalating. Joe Biden is shaking down this country. And then when Trump's in, everything stops.
Yeah, and it's not just Biden that was shaking it down. I mean, Biden was one of the top guys shaking it down. But there's so many of these people in Washington, D.C. that represent these countries. I mean, we don't even know the half of how many people were on the payroll of these Ukrainians. Both Democrats and Republicans.
I think Ukraine is a vassal state of NATO, of the United States. You've got Russia running the Gazprom pipeline through the country, jacking up the prices into Europe, causing a lot of problems. The U.S. wanted to build the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. Syria said no. The U.S. says, oh, look, lucky us. Bashar al-Assad is facing a civil war, and we just happen to support the other people. It seems very obvious what the whole thing was really about and why they wanted to demonize Russia over China.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what did you think about Trump's foreign policy towards Ukraine and Russia? Because you made some assertions about Obama being kind of soft on Russia. Mm-hmm. What did you think of Trump's job? How did he do? Because he was also the first president to send lethal weapons to Ukraine, which some people at the time saw as an escalation.
Yeah. Well, look. If you look at what Trump, let's talk about the big picture and back up and then go back to the propaganda. So remember, every time Trump would make a move, they would say, he's an idiot. Oh, I can't believe he said that. This is embarrassing. And, a lot of us were sitting back saying, well, wait a second. We've been having these, I would go to these meetings and, I spent a lot of time overseas. I mean, Colonel Harvey was with me at a lot of these meetings. And we would go meet with anywhere from our allies to okay people to some really bad people, And I was just glad for the first time because, I was always as a chair of a committee and top Republican, you never want to go. We always kind of had a rule that, the partisanship stops once we leave the country, right? And you try to put forth, good faith effort overseas. So, with Republicans, Democrats, you don't want to be fighting your political conflicts over there. It just makes for confusion. And, I'd sit in those damn meetings I remember specifically sitting in a meeting with the Germans, knowing that they were shutting down their nuclear power plants and they were getting ready to put this additional pipeline in to be solely reliant on Russia. And I was thinking to myself, and I always kick myself sometimes when you think I should have said something, I should have done something. And not that it would have mattered at the time, but I said, I felt like saying, what the hell are you guys doing? And sometimes I'd have little sidebars like, what the hell are you guys doing with this? You guys are shutting down these nuclear power plants. This is crazy. So when Trump goes over there and says, okay, cut all this bullshit out. Here's what we're gonna do. Why are you buying these? Why are you putting this pipeline? Why are you shutting down your nuclear power plants? You guys are crazy. Why aren't you putting in the money to NATO? I mean, how many times I would go to NATO and we'd sit there in these stupid meetings and everybody, I can only put in 1.2%. I'm supposed to put in 2. I mean, this has gone on for 3 or 4 decades of these guys not putting in their money.
Yeah,
and so what Trump, remember, that was just, what he said was not crazy. It was actually just common sense. But they should be paying, and they shouldn't be shutting down their nukes, and they shouldn't be buying gas from Russia, because if you do, and the Russians decide to ultimately shut off your gas, now what the hell are they going to do? Now they got a hell of a mess. I mean, this thing could get really bad.
But
In Germany, in Europe, this could get really bad if the Russians decide to shut this gas off here in the next 2 months.
it's going to get bad because they're going to use winter as a weapon. But Trump offered American natural gas. You want gas? We'll provide it to you. He provided Eastern Europeans, especially the Poles, military assistance and, weapon systems and things that the Obama administration had been denying. Built relationships with Romania and other countries, okay? He focused on Russia doing things that the Obama administration didn't do. He was building up NATO and pressuring NATO, which the Democrats accused him of dividing NATO and weakening NATO, but he called them out and he got them to increase funding by $140 billion.
Which still wasn't close to the 2%, but it was more than we had ever gotten out.
Right.
I'm just imagining these NATO countries. They're like, I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a missile defense system today. And then every week it's just the same thing. That famous line, who was that guy? The cheeseburger guy? Was it Archie Comics?
So did you agree with Trump's policy? Did you think he did a good job when it came to navigating Russia, Ukraine, and that situation, the way it's unfolding right now? And more importantly...
Yeah, I mean, I think, probably the best thing that he did overall was how he dealt with China.
Yeah.
When he said he was going to put in those tariffs, I thought to myself, oh shit, I've heard this I've been around Washington, every president, we're going to really get tough on China. And I'll be damned if he didn't do it.
But specifically where we are now, and especially your work on the Intelligence Committee, how dangerous is the current situation that we're in now, especially with this kind of proxy war between the East and the West unfolding in Ukraine right now?
It kind of depends on. It's tough to get good analysis out of there, right?
Yeah.
So, look, Russia could do some real damage to Europe this winter. That's a serious issue that we just talked about. Secondly, it kind of depends on I think the Russians are, have they lost 30,000, 50,000, 100,000? Who knows what the right number is? But, the Russians clearly thought they were going to go in there, march to Kiev, and that the Ukrainians were going to lay down their guns. And I will tell you that, I think number one, it's hard for them to, no matter how much they censor, there's still a lot of young people that they're conscripts that the Russians are relying on. But they know Ukrainians, they know each other. The Ukrainians never want to have the Russians back. They know what it was like. The old. You have a lot of the guys that are fighting for the Ukrainians right now are guys that were in the Russian military. You got guys that are 40, 50, 60 years old that were brought up and trained, by the Soviets that are now running their military operations. The Russians are relying on a lot of conscript. They've lost, let's just call it, what do you think? They lost 50,000 probably for sure?
Probably. That's killed. We're not talking about all casualties, but they've lost
50,
a lot.
50,000 would mean what, 250,000 casualties?
I'm not sure it's that many given the lethality on the battlefield today, but going back just a minute, the Biden administration basically invited them into Ukraine by closing down the embassy, evacuating all Americans, and just basically saying, hey, Russia, we're not going to interfere. We're not going to do anything. We don't want to have any problems. Take what you want, and got out of the way. The fact that Zelensky in Ukraine fought and the Russians were incompetent created a stalemate, and it forced their hand, and the Europeans stepped up to the plate. I'm not sure who led. I'm not sure the Biden administration led on this. They're going to try and take credit for it anyway. But right now, one of the issues that is being talked about is, with Russia losing as badly as they are, and they've been having some significant setbacks on the ground, what would trigger a tactical nuke or something else that would potentially lead to some other miscalculations?
I think you'd do it.
Yeah, Putin is, and I've said this for a long time. This is, I had always been a Russian hawk, and I would always say that anybody who thought they were going to get along with Putin, it was a fool's errand, right? And that goes back to Clinton, George W. Bush, McCain, you name it, all of these guys, senior level, and I always disagreed. Putin is a thug and always will be a thug. You can only deal with him, with force. He only understands one thing, force. And so the idea that you would think that now I don't think he's playing with a full deck. I didn't think that he would go into Ukraine because I said, why would you do that when you already know how to use the little green men? You can do this by attrition. So clearly he's a brilliant guy, very dangerous, but he's getting, something's not right there. And now, what the colonel said, I mean, this guy could use tactical nukes. I mean, he's not going to let the rest of his guys get annihilated in Ukraine.
And he's not going to lose.
Even true.
And people need to understand too that when many people imagine nuclear weapons, they imagine megaton bombs and these massive ICBMs and MIRVs and things like that. He could be using nuclear artillery. They could use a low yield, relatively, nuclear bomb that just decimates the central Kiev. What would happen to the morale of the Ukrainian soldiers if Putin were to fire a nuke? I think people would drop their guns and run full speed, because what do you do at that level of war?
Yeah.
And that could eventually lead to, I don't know, Ukraine become. I don't believe that it would result necessarily in mutually assured destruction. If Putin targets Ukrainian strategic locations, military, and there's some fear that he'll use nuclear power plants as standing nuclear weapons. If he targets them and uses lower yield weapons, I don't see NATO or the West responding with larger yield bombs against Russia.
Well, Putin does not want Ukraine to exist if Russia does not own it. He'd like it to be a wasteland.
Well, I think it's also important because there's a lot of energy being found, especially in the southern part, especially in by Odessa, that the Russians want to control, and that's why they concentrated a lot of their forces, a lot of their troops on the southern, because they don't want Ukraine to become a petro-state. Because if Ukraine becomes a petro-state, Russia is absolutely defeated and screwed over in the long term in their trajectory. And I think, there's a lot of interest here. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of policy. There's a lot of history here, and it's
fossil fuels are so old.
Yeah.
Let's get with it. Let's get with the Biden administration. It's old news, fossil fuels.
Nuclear power. Are they doing that? I'll take some nuke plants.
Yeah, I think it's far more complicated, but I think the situation is so dangerous, and I see so much escalation and no real push for de-escalation or peace talks, and I think it's such a complicated thing. There's no easy answer here, but to me, this is just absolutely reckless on so many levels.
I asked Luke this the other day, you guys seem a little upset about this. Have you considered owning nothing and being happy? Yeah? No?
No, not at all.
No one own nothing?
Never.
No great reset for you? No looking forward to just letting them take all your belongings?
If I was going to do that, I'd go and become a Franciscan priest. But
it seems like that's the way things are going. And it makes me wonder about if there is an agenda towards a great reset. I mean, Klaus Schwab wrote a book about it. To what extent does the dude actually have the ability and the power to implement something like that?
Speaking of resets, you're from Illinois, right?
Yes.
Illinois' new Safety Act.
Yeah, okay, funny name, huh?
Where you can't even protect your own property. Trespassers can come in and camp on your property, on your front porch, and the police will not do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, what is going on? They're attacking property rights, values across the board in Illinois.
You will own nothing and you will be happy. See, this is a good point. The Safety Act. You heard about this? They're saying, as you said, the police won't respond to trespassers on your property, and they're going to eliminate cash bail for most criminal offenders.
Murder. Even murder.
Okay, but you guys realize you're talking to a guy who's from California.
You're like, hold my beer. Chicago.
You want me to?
It's already happened here, huh?
I mean, I can go on and on.
You're like, oh, the good old days. Don't let them do it to you too.
But this is another example. You're talking. This is Chicago and the suburbs dictating to the rest of the state.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I always tell the story about people who haven't been to California recently. You see the pictures of the homeless, you see the pictures of the nuttiness in San Francisco, and you see the pictures in LA and all the popular places. But those places have always had homeless people. It's just that they're 10 or 15x. Where you didn't have homeless people were in the rest of the state, or if you did, they were kind of your traditional hobo. Kind of, you have onesies, twosies, five, maybe.
Well, let's real quick. Let's break this down. Hobo means homeward bound, and it's a reference to people moving. And
right.
So that makes us be sleeping outside, but they're leaving. Vagrants, I think, are just derelict individuals who mill about. Vagabonds are travelers, and then a bum, I think, is somebody who doesn't work. So we got to make sure we get those terms right.
Right, but that's traditionally what you had.
Hobos. But
you just had a few of each one of that category. You just said, like in my home city, 65,000 people. And, you just have a handful of people. And, the police go out there, work with them, and churches would take care of them. And so I always tell people this. It was not that long ago. I think it was 2015. I have a church across the street from my house. And there were 2 homeless people that started living out there. But that was it. There was in the whole city, that was the only ones. I mean, there were a handful of others that people were in and out of homes. There was places that they could get to. And I remember all my neighbors saying, "Oh my God, these people are living right there across the street." And people were shocked. And they went to the church and said, "Look, you can't have these people living across the street." And the church says, "Well, we're a home for, we're a church, so we got to, help these people." Well, then the 2 turned into 6 and the 6 turned into 12. And then the church said, "No solicitation, so homeless people were gone from the church. But they didn't go very far. And now in my home city, 65,000 people, what started with just a handful of homeless, okay, we now have estimated somewhere between 500 and 700 in my home city.
Wow.
But that's in every single city across California. So I call it's like zombie apocalypse. We are welcoming all these people here. They have their own governments. And so it's like Stockholm syndrome, right? I remember how I just gave the story. 2015, everybody's, "Oh my God, there's 2 homeless people across the street." To now, there's zombies everywhere and nobody does anything. I mean, I've got literally a football field away from me, where I live, we've got a whole homeless encampment. I mean, I can't, my kids, my girls can't walk over to the little mini market because they got to go through a homeless camp.
So I made this point, I think it was Memorial Day. We went to the movies, and there was not a soul in sight. The movie theater was empty. The arcade machines had been removed from it. This is a big shopping center in Frederick. And I'm walking around, and I'm looking around. I'm like, where are the people? Nobody's here. Nobody's out. There's a pool hall. It's empty. Where'd everybody go? There's an ice cream shop. Closed. And it said, "We're closed due to short staff." And I was like, where are the people? I recently went to... what city I can't remember the name of the city. I don't know. It's in West Virginia. And there's a diner at noon on a weekend saying closed due...
Martinsburg.
Martinsburg, that's the one. Closed due to short staff. And then I was just like, where is everyone? And then Ian made a good point. And he goes, a lot of more homeless people popping up. And I was like, man, is that what's happening? People aren't working anywhere. They're losing their homes. They can't afford it anymore. And that's why the homeless population is increasing so much.
I think what at least what you see in California, and we're getting them from all over the country, and it's really sad because a lot of them are a product of methamphetamines.
Oh man, I started watching Breaking Bad.
Their minds
know
are
all about it now.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's pretty bad. I mean, you feel bad because there's not really nothing. These people are never going to be able to function in life, and they just kind of follow. I hate calling them zombies, but I don't really know what else to call them. They just kind of follow, and they have leaders.
Meth heads.
And but a lot of them aren't even doing meth anymore, I don't think.
Crackheads.
Yeah, they're just gone.
Hunter Bidens.
Well, heroin, fentanyl, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We got a big problem across the whole country with this. Well, it's a plague.
Well, if you look at homelessness, a lot of it is usually correlated to it, not just drug addiction, but a mental health crisis. And I think that mental health crisis is getting worse and worse, especially by the numbers. When you look at depression, self-harm, suicide, those numbers have been going up dramatically. How do you deal with this type of situation? And, who do we blame? Do we blame Big Pharma for the opioid epidemic? Do we blame China for the fentanyl that makes it worse? Do we blame the fast food industry that's creating a poor mental health? Do we blame social media that's also creating poor mental health?
Do you blame legalization of marijuana across the whole country? Do you blame, you could go on down the list, but the drug use across the board contributes significantly to the mental health issues because it does create damage to the brain and the functioning of a good segment of that population.
Alcohol, though. I mean, alcohol, I think, substantially worse than pot.
Yeah. But
prohibition didn't work. And we were like, let's repeal that amendment. That didn't make sense. It's funny that I'm surprised, learning about American history, that they were actually able to get a constitutional amendment just to get rid of alcohol.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I think it's crazy that marijuana is still illegal in some states, but doctors could prescribe legalized heroin and get people addicted and hooked on for the rest of their lives. That's a problem right there that deserves to be called out. And yes, marijuana is being genetically engineered. There's a whole bunch of Frankenstein marijuana that's really bad, especially for children. But we can't start with prohibition. It never worked. It never has worked. But there is something to say about how society has failed most people, and most people are now becoming homeless homeless or poor more than ever.
Yeah, I think what you say, I mean, all of these issues that we're talking about, all of them to some degree matter. But the challenge that we have in California is that, I always tell people, stop. If you don't want bears, stop feeding the bears. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have to admit you have a problem and stop. And we're getting more and more and more of them. And there's so many things that have to be done to handle the problem. But it is, I mean, look, every time I get on a plane, when I left California the other day, before I got stuck in Dallas and then teleported to the secret meeting with President Trump at the golf course, before all that.
It could have been your evil twin, though.
Could have been.
Or good twin. Are you the evil one? But continue.
But every time I fly, I get, you used to be my congressman back in the day, but I left to Texas like 5 years ago or 3 years ago. I mean, every time it's people that still have business in California or whatever, but they've moved their headquarters to a different state.
Wow.
Well, the exodus is happening in Illinois too.
Maybe it's a self-correcting problem. You let them run amok and go crazy for long enough, and people are going to be like, I'm out.
How long before Illinois goes bankrupt?
I don't know. How long?
I mean, can the state go bankrupt?
Well, Biden will give them money. He'll find a way. They'll find a way to just pump money into the system and keep the zombie state hopping along.
Well, remember in California, we're going to be all green, right? Yet we're not building any new ways to produce power en masse. In fact, we shut down a nuclear power plant. We were talking about nuclear a few minutes ago. And then we were going to shut down our last 2 reactors that are still supplying 10% of our power. So I don't know if everybody's paying attention, but you couldn't charge your car the other night. If you were in California, you had to, and the governor sent a message to everybody's phone saying, turn off your power now.
Do you see in Colorado when the thermostats couldn't be changed?
Oh, no, I didn't see
Energy
that.
crisis, your thermostat's stuck at 78.
Well, that's if you sign up for that program, right?
But people, this is the thing. They come to you and they say, do you want to sign up for our Smart Saver program? It's $100 off your bill per year. Sure.
Sounds good.
All right, have a nice day. And then all of a sudden you can't change your thermostat. It's not like people knew they were signing up for that.
Yeah. But now they until they feel pain. So now Newsom wants to run for president. He feels pain. We're on the verge of blackouts all the time. And it's not just because of, everybody say, oh my God, it's global warming. It's like, no, you idiots. It always gets hot in California during the summer. I mean, it's not unusual for there to be, big spikes in temperatures.
It doesn't happen in Florida.
I'll tell you, you know what it is? I remember,
You're right, it doesn't.
I was in California during the drought in like 2015, and ain't nobody stopped shouting. They were like, everybody, you got to limit your water use. And I knew people who were like, yeah, but not me. And that was the mentality of almost every single person. They were all running their long, hot showers being like, I don't care.
Yeah, but the drought is, now you're getting into my wheelhouse now. It's how I actually got in politics, was because of this crazy water issue. So you realize that like LA, San Francisco is actually a desert. Nobody thinks of it as a desert.
San Francisco.
San Francisco is a desert.
But what, the Delta water is what keeps it alive?
No. What keeps it alive actually was the founding fathers of the city realized they needed some really fresh, good, clean water. They went into Yosemite National Park, dammed up a valley, not as big as Yosemite Valley, but one that was a small mirror image of it just over the mountain range. They dammed it up. It's a dam called Hetch Hetchy. They dammed it up. They piped the water.
Sorry, how do you spell that?
Hetch Hetchy. H-E-T-C-H.
Easy enough.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, Hetch Hetchy. Yeah,
Yep.
let's pull up the map.
Oh,
Continue.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you keep that map up, so back in around the turn of the century, I'm talking about 1900 now, the city of San Francisco figured out, hell, we don't have any water here. We got to do something because you can't drink the salt water in the bay, right?
Yeah.
So they built that dam, created that lake, and they piped the water all the way over to San Francisco. All right? That's where San Francisco gets its water.
Wow.
Now, as the rest of the state developed, all these water projects were built, and there's actually plenty of water in the state. You just have to move it around. You have to keep it in the wet years, and you have to move it around because it's not uncommon for California to go through. Everybody says, like you said, there was a drought in 15.
Yeah.
We have droughts like all the time. Like
It's a desert.
You have a
LA's a desert.
Yeah, you'll have 2 wet years. You'll have 4 dry years. You have 1 wet year. But my point to say all this is that this is a man-made created crisis. Like the people of California knew that, like when we had people with brains, they knew, hey, we better build some nuclear power plants. If we're going to have 40 million people living here, we better build nuclear power plants. Clean, easy, they work. And in fact, what I was saying about Payne, Newsom now, after Republicans, the few Republicans that are left, including our delegation, said, idiot, you're going to run the state out of power. He finally acquiesced and said, I'm going to come in and save the nuclear power plant. Not talking about how he was the one that was going to shut it down in the first place. And the same thing as water. Until people run out of water, into what you said, Tim, that like they actually don't have any water coming out of the tap.
I've seen it.
There won't be any pain. Nobody will pay the price, and they won't change their methods of operation.
They just leave.
Well, the conservative people leave.
Well, everybody does, even the liberal people. The liberal people vote for policies and vote for people like Newsom, burn it to the ground, and then go, this sucks, I'm leaving.
I'm going to Montana. I'm going to Utah.
Colorado.
And they bring their policies with them.
Yeah.
And then it happens all over again. It's a cultural problem. A lot of this, everything I think we're facing is all cultural issues. There is a sect of people right now, and it's mostly the Democrats, the Biden supporters. They only care about saying what is socially acceptable. So, of course, they repeat what they see on TV. They believe every single hoax. And they vote for policies that destroy everything. So long as the mob, they agree with the mob, they're content to just watch everything burn. These people, I feel like they've always been here. They've always been around. But with social media, they've been trapped in a spiral where they're all just chasing each other. It's a Mexican standoff of cancel culture. So you have people who are brave enough to be like, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to agree with that. And then they get mad at you saying, you're not agreeing with the consensus reality. So you're a bad guy.
You're an extremist.
Exactly.
That's the White House. You're an extremist.
So what ends up happening is they say, the acceptable thing is that nuclear power is bad. The acceptable thing is that coal power plants are bad. Then you end up with no power. Doesn't matter. They said right thing. Good thing was said, therefore we good. Then the grid collapses, everyone suffers, and they flee to your state, and they say the same exact things. One by one, just gutting and destroying. That's what I'm worried about with Texas. Look, mad respect to Joe Rogan. He recently said, vote Republican. Did you guys hear this? Mm-hmm. When they were like, what do you tell these people whose businesses were shut down? And he's like, vote Republican. And they laugh. And people point out it's good that Joe moved to Texas, because he opposes that stuff. But what people don't understand is that Joe is surrounded by wealth and industry. And the people who will follow him for him and not for politics or for political reasons are going to bring liberal policies. Elon Musk brings the Gigafactory to Austin. And everyone's like, oh, that's great. Elon Musk, he's fleeing California. Woohoo. And it's like, and all of the people who lived in California working for him, 2-1, it's Democrats. It's liberal voters coming to Texas. Now, I think there still is good news because it seems like more anti-woke, anti-cult people are moving to Texas, and it's going to help keep the state red. And you have the Rio Grande Valley, which has turned red. So I think it'll be okay, and that will actually dilute the cults.
That was one of the things I was going to. I think the Mexican vote in this country, and I specifically say, you could actually use the larger term Hispanic, but it's really the Mexican vote that's in Texas and California, Arizona, those places. If that vote actually begins to shift, and it doesn't have to shift very much, and if you remember in 2016 when Trump won, remember the fake news had created this whole narrative that Trump was going to, get rid of all the Hispanics. They were all going to be kicked out of the country. Remember that?
Yeah, but he posted that Taco Bowl picture. I didn't believe it for a second.
Well, but a lot of people did. I mean, it was kind of a hard time because I felt bad, like small kids that my wife's a school teacher. And I remember hearing the stories about little kids who actually thought that they were going to, that Trump was going to come and, get them and send them back, even though they were born in the United States. But that's the kind of damage you talk about that this can do to young people, and they get these images. But do you know that in the only growth area that I saw in the electorate in California in 18 and in 20 was with Mexican American voters? If you were a working Mexican American, those people, and actually working anyone,
they're moving Republican.
They're shifting, not quickly, but they're shifting. We saw it on the Rio Grande Valley. Where you're not shifting, anybody who's college educated, doesn't matter what color, what letter you use, as your pronouns, you are going to be, you're shifting left.
Well, one of the things on the exodus, the governor of New York says, hey, Republicans, leave New York. Get out of here. We don't want you here.
Yeah, that was amazing.
In Florida, there's now an 800,000 Republican voter advantage, and it used to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, us and Rumble, we're in Sarasota, Florida, the new free speech capital. Truth Social's in Florida, Sarasota, so is Rumble. Timcast should move down to Sarasota, Florida.
That's what I've been telling Tim. I
Weather's-
visited Sarasota. I visited the headquarters in Rumble at Rumble. I was like, "This is a great place, Tim. We gotta
All
go.
right,
We gotta
all right,
come-
you
come
know.
to
Yeah, you
Florida."
guys should move there.
We'll need a.
That'd be fun. Then I
we'll-
could come on the show all the time.
Yeah.
We would need if the city can provide some kind of like grant so that we can relocate 30 plus employees and build new infrastructure. We otherwise
And
couldn't
tax
afford it.
incentives. We'll just talk to Ron. He'll be like, "Hey, Ron, hook it up." DeSantis.
The weather, man. This is the problem.
It's
I
not
talk to
that
people-
bad.
Oh,
It's
I
not
lived in
that
Miami.
bad.
I lived in the Redlands.
No income
you-
tax.
You lived in the
No
Redlands.
individual income tax.
Yes, you live deep inside of the thing. You got to be by the beach where the breeze is. It's cool. It's fun. It's
Hey,
great.
It's 100
awesome.
degrees with maximum humidity
You're in the-
all the time.
No.
Miami
Air
yes.
conditioning.
I thought this.
Sarasota's beautiful. I loved it there.
I thought the same thing. So, when I was in DC, California gets hot where I'm from. I'm from the big agricultural valley. And I mean, we're getting 105, we got 111 the other day. But I've never been hotter outside of when I was in Iraq a few times, which Colonel Harvey lived there for 5 or 6 years. So he can tell can tell you about real hot. But in DC, I mean, if it would be in the 90s, 95 with that nasty humidity with no breeze, and that's what you'll see sometimes in Miami. But you're exactly right. I just think I've been shocked at how even when I thought, oh man, the humidity's gonna suck in Sarasota, but there's always this breeze that comes off the Gulf.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm a big.
We
Florida
shouldn't
man.
be talking about Sarasota because we're going to have too
It's
many
terrible.
people. Too many people are going to move,
Right.
And
to
they're
Sarasota.
already moving in. I talked to some locals that live there. They're like, everyone's moving in. Everyone's taking all the properties. All
So-
these damn yuppies are coming in here.
Hey, I'll tell you what. We'll build you a studio in our office.
Okay. Every
So
state. Oh, go ahead.
The average high in January is 72.
Oh, nice.
That's perfect.
The average high in April and May is 82, then 87, 90 in June, 91 in July, 91 in August,
Sounds like
90
Colorado.
in September, 86 in August.
That's not that different than here.
That's
actually not.
very
Not
different
that
from here. The average high in January here is like 35.
I'm a big Florida man. I love Florida. I'm very biased in my love affair.
And
Why
look,
don't
look,
you?
politically, I like Florida.
Why don't you do? I'm just.
Well, it's a
we're
purple
just throwing
state.
stuff at the wall. This is
It's a battleground
idea.
state. It's a
winter-
purple
you're saying-
state.
you're
It
saying-
could go either way. We need all the resources down in
Saying
Florida.
We should build a winter cast castle.
Exactly.
So just in
Yes.
Yes.
October. So in was it? Oh, I don't even have December pulled up.
I can teleport, but you can mind read.
Yeah, well,
That's
there you go.
exactly what I was
So
going to say.
November to February is we're based in Florida, and then we come back.
Exactly. And then you
I-
detoxify.
I
You
like
sweat out all
snowboarding.
the toxins from your body, and then
I
Sweat it
sweat
out,
every
huh?
single day skating. Luke, we're skating out there today, all right? And I'm covered in sweat, and Luke's sitting there hunched over eating a stromboli with pepperoni.
I was doing pull-ups right before that. All right, I did a little working out today, so I'm really.
He came
proud of
out
it.
with a balance board, and then he pulled out a stromboli and just slouched it down and was like,
And I was working out in the gym. You can check the surveillance cameras. Anyway, not going too personal because we got to do super chats really. And I
This
really,
guy, we're 3 minutes
and-
away from
and
super
I
chats.
wanted to ask you so many questions. I have like a list of questions I really want
Ask
to
'em.
ask you. But just
Well, you got to go to Sarasota, and then we'll just do it from there.
right here, right now. I really want to talk about the Intelligence Committee because I hear so many rumors just about being a part of this kind of committee. I'm hearing about people being scared of losing their clearances. I heard even Dianne Feinstein in 2014 talked about how the CIA was spying on this committee. How was it, being a part of this committee? What was going on? Can you tell us your experiences? Were you being spied on? What was going on the inside?
I actually had I'm probably the only person, or very few people on the planet who can actually say this. I went from the very best job in the world, and within a matter of just a few months, to the very worst job in the world. Okay, so I was having, it was tough work, but it was rewarding work. You get to work with patriots like Colonel Harvey. A lot of the folks I worked with, it was very bipartisan. You never heard from the House Intelligence Committee until until you got to the point of, if there was a terrorist attack or some international issue, because people didn't even really want to serve on the Intelligence Committee because it was hard work. You had to do a lot. If you actually took it seriously, you had to do a lot of travel. It wasn't to great places, except when Harvey and I were in Vienna that one time.
Yeah.
But then overnight, Trump wins, and then they turn it into that, everybody's a Russian agent, everybody's Russian disinformation. So it went from the best job to the worst job. I mean, I went under, because I had to sit there and take all their bullshit for year after year. I mean, look,
Sounds so creepy,
I'm not even
dude.
in Congress anymore, and I mean, look, they're still attacking, my former staff. I mean, Kash Patel. I mean, they put him in a damn warrant the other day with his, that story that we were talking about
What
Breitbart.
happened?
Was he subpoenaed?
right.
The Breitbart story that he was in. So,
Well, yeah.
I mean, and there's still, every day this it's like this.
They put you in a
Russia
story
never
about a
dies.
secret meeting with Donald Trump on a golf course.
Yeah.
Was there any more retribution that you faced for speaking out against what you knew was wrong and what you were right all along about?
I mean, look, there's still, look, this is, I was getting, why did I leave Congress? It's because the free flow of information, the internet is shut down. We're trying to create a beachhead to open it back up. I mean, it's that simple. And the way that I realized it is after the 2020 election, I thought to myself, after, Parler got canceled and all that we talked about earlier. But another important point is, how could it be that you still had over half of America at that point, according to polls that I'd seen right after the election, that believed that Trump and Republicans had something to do with Russia? They don't know what, but they had something to do with Russia. And that's when I said, oh my God, like, how did this happen? Like, I spent 4 years debunking this whole damn thing. It's a total hoax. And you still had half of America who didn't know about it and who believed.
And the Hunter Biden story was censored.
And the Hunter Biden story was censored. Yeah.
Is there anything that you were a part of the committee that you were able to get information about that you knew everyone else was wrong about, other than just the whole Russian gate?
Well, other than Harvey.
China. We were doing a lot on China, identifying what China was doing in technology, espionage, pushing that China was a real threat, and that was before Trump.
Yeah, we ran actually our China investigation dated back a long time, and we were, and Colonel Harvey was running that investigation for us. There's a lot there. I mean, China's a big problem, but we want to be happy warriors for the rest of the night and not get depressed.
Yeah,
What did Ronald Reagan say?
Good.
If you want to be depressed, go outside and lie down.
Right on. Let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, give a little tap, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com. Head over there, click the Join Us button, because we're going to have a members-only uncensored show coming up at 11 p.m. tonight. You don't want to miss it, but let's read what y'all have to say. All right. Leor Engelstein says, I'll start off the Super Chats by saying, a government that has created enough laws that the average citizen breaks 20 federal laws a day is the same as, quote, show me the man and I will tell you the crime.
Yes.
You see that viral video of the cop where she's like, if you're in front of me, get out of my way. If you don't get out of my way, I'm behind you long enough, I can find a reason to get you. It's
Of
like,
course.
Oh yeah,
show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
that was a strong bureaucratic Becky there.
Well, that's what we used to say about Mueller. The Mueller witch hunt was an investigation in search of a crime.
Yeah.
Jason D says, Tim, you mentioned a while back that Michael Graves might come on the show. Any plans for that? Would be great to hear what he's got to say these days. Oh yeah, we'll reach out to him. It's been a while. Yeah, he's cool. We'll talk to the crew and see what we got. Dano says, I am a sub at Timcast and I can't give much, but after the video about schools today, I wanted to support you more to hopefully support that micro school more that you gave to. Thanks, Tim, for all you do. So yeah, there's a micro school out here. You guys familiar with the concept? Basically what you do is you got a bunch of kids who are homeschooled and you put them in the same place. The school is based on, instead of a grade classroom, students have grades. So if a student has a 6th grade reading level but an 8th grade math level, then that's what they have. And then as soon as they finish the tests, they level up. That way the kids can move as quickly or as slowly as they need to. But it's basically get your kids out of the public school system. It's super corrupt. Homeschool your kids. And this is the step up from homeschooling. It's basically, well, it's the step up from pods. Do you know about pod learning? All the families get their kids together. They hire a tutor.
Right.
You do that with 10 times as many kids. And now you've got a micro school. So I recently made a contribution in the low 5 figures to help a micro school get started out here. Make sure they have books and the kids can get good learning. And there's some religious values involved. And I think it's a good idea, especially considering how they're trying to indoctrinate kids at schools. I thought it's an important thing to do.
Yeah.
So Dano, I really appreciate the support. This was my personal, contribution. Just wanted to help these schools and put my money where my mouth is. Adam Noel says, Ian mentioned Jackson, Mississippi last night. I just want to point out their mayor, Chokwe Antar Lumumba, is a self-proclaimed progressive and socialist. Coincidence? I don't think so. Don't know. Does that have anything to do with them not having water? No idea.
Don't know. No, sorry.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, talking to my normie bro about the midterms, his exact words were, wait, it's only the midterms? Biden has 2 years left? It got this bad that fast? Yes. Man, I hate to say I told you so. John Kirsten says, last 2 days, no notification on when live started, but got one Monday. WTF, YouTube.
Many such cases.
What are you going to do?
I'm sorry, guys.
I think YouTube would love to end this show algorithmically. They can't just delete it. I mean, they technically could, but it would create a big splash, and they try to avoid that. So what they do is removing notifications makes it so slightly less and less people will find the show. The only problem for YouTube is that we have strong draw, and people choose to come and watch the show. So thank you all who do, and y'all share the show. So when a notification doesn't go out, here's the good news. Y'all can be the notification. So if YouTube wants to put the if they want to jam us up, not put out notifications, even for those who've selected it, all you have to do is take the URL to this video and post it on any social media you can, and that will be 10 times more powerful than any notification.
Wait, you guys get
Thank
notifications here?
Yeah, Luke's been shadow.
I haven't had that for years.
Luke Fredsel says, Chris cheated. Ian needs justice. Free the September 6th prisoners. Cass Castle Union is crooked. If you guys haven't been watching Cass Castle, there's a funny story arc going on where Ian runs for union president, but a bunch of early ballots come in at 3 a.m. and Chris ends up winning. And so, yeah. Brother Brovet says, YouTube didn't send notices. Link to the show is bad. Well, there you go. Y'all still found the show somehow, so thanks for tuning in. Mount Jeeves says, they get away with it because the people they look to tell them to vote and wait to be saved instead of organizing. Well, I gotta halt a little bit of that comment because we are, first of all,
Spicy.
It's a little too spicy. And we are less than 2 months away from an election where we actually have prominent MAGA Republicans, America First Republicans, who are set to win. We've got, people like Corey Mills in Florida. We've got people like Kerry Lake, the governor of Arizona. You are so close to tasting a real victory. You should get your friends to go vote. Seriously. Eric Miller says, Tim, I'm hearing due to supply constraints that Congress could deny the railway rights to strike. Could be why JB and the Dems aren't worried. Yeah, what do you guys think about that with the railway strike? Could they stop the strike from happening?
The president has the authority.
I think they would have
It
to.
can delay for a while. I'm not sure how long it is.
What if, this is what I never understood. I was told it was like illegal for firefighters or cops to strike. And I'm like, oh yeah, you could just not show up. Like, what are they going to do if you're like, then I'm out, I quit. This is why I don't like unions. This is why I despise unions. You got a company, right? Let's say it's 1,000 people. And the what's happening with the company, it's really, really bad. The wages are really bad. They're not able to feed their families. And they say, you know what? I've had enough. Who's with me? Well, collective bargaining is awesome. All of these people can then just be like, then we're out. We are not going to work and we agree. But now with these union laws, they're like, we can legally stop you from striking. And I'm like, well, no one's stopping you from quitting. So the collective bargaining is still there. I think the problem with unions is that they actually hinder people's ability to organize properly. People should organize more.
I think the Biden administration is the administration of chaos, and I think it's not something that they want to prevent. I think it's something that they want to spur on because it's going to work in their benefit when it comes to the larger destruction of our economy that they have been already engineering. But that's just my opinion.
If they strike, I mean, just let's take my part of California. You have to remember we're an agricultural area. We have living animals, right, that rely on grain imported. I mean, one of the reasons why the United States is such a strong country is because we can feed ourselves. We have more food here than we can consume. But if the food can't move around the country, especially when you have living animals that rely on that grain from the Midwest, you could be facing. That's just one little example of, like, you don't have, like, if the trains don't run for 3 or 4 days, within a week we have starving animals in California.
You don't have the commodities going to the Kellogg's factories or Purina or others that gets processed into real food.
Remember how crazy they went about the baby food crisis?
Yep.
The baby formula crisis? I mean, you could have that on a large scale. I mean, there is no way they can let these trains,
and then
shut down.
Coal for power and fuel oil.
We're going to go back to wood soon.
Well, wood is not a carbon emitter when you burn it. The EPA says wood is natural, therefore we're not going to regulate it.
What?
Right. It's not. It's
You know what? I'm going to build a steam
Perfect.
engine. I'm going to build a wood-powered steam engine. Generate electricity with wood. You know, I've been thinking about it. People tell me to get a diesel generator, and I'm like, you get an engine that spins. Okay, why don't I just build my own steam engine with a piston? I'll just do that. And then I'll power my house with trees. Yeah, what are they going to do about it?
Or move to Florida.
Well, we
There you
got
go.
solar too, so. But Florida sunny. Rant Milk says, Tim Pool, would you kindly turn my TV off the next time you steal my spoons? So,
what is that?
so there, like, you know, with shows like this come stalkers, and there was one person. It was one of my favorite. They claimed on Twitter that I showed up to their house at 2 a.m., thousands of miles away from where the
You can
studio is,
teleport too.
and walked in their house and turned their TVs on, and it woke up their family, and they were really pissed off that it happened, and people believed it. They actually like, wow, I can believe he would do that. Haha, so crazy. And I'm like, bro, I'm thousands of miles away from this place. Why would you believe that I did that? Because people are insane.
They want to believe.
They do. Augusto Mimoshe says, as a libertarian and Ron Paul supporter, I demand an apology and an I told you so rights from conservatives for the Patriot Act, etc. That's correct.
A lot of Ron Paul libertarians were warning Republicans that the powers that they have given themselves after 9/11 will eventually be used against them, and I think that's
Yeah, well,
what's happening here.
I mentioned that. I think we were talking about the creation of the DNI. The one thing that you do have to remember about the Patriot Act, if you look at all the crimes that have been committed recently, it's even worse than the Patriot Act. You have to actually go back 30 years, and the creation of the FISA court, which had nothing to do with that. So it's not even the Patriot. It's going all the way back to what was done after the Church Commission in the 1970s and 80s. So, and Rand Paul and I have talked about this, at nauseum.
That was a very important commission that revealed a lot.
Yeah. And laws were put in, and now those laws are being broke.
Yep.
From that time, it's not just the ones that were put in after 9/11. You have to go all the way back to, I forget, I think it's 78, I think.
I was just thinking of something. I'm going to derail totally. But one of the segments we did for 2 days ago, it's called TikTok is making young girls completely insane. And it's getting hundreds of thousands of hits. It's like going viral on YouTube. And I'm like, why that one? Why is our segment about TikTok making young girls insane just getting like hundreds of thousands of hits? And, even right now. And then I went, oh, I wonder if it's because YouTube doesn't want TikTok to succeed. So YouTube is actively promoting us ragging on TikTok because it benefits YouTube. And then I'm like, I'll rag on TikTok all day if you wants to rag on TikTok. TikTok's bad.
Absolutely.
Tencent, China spying on Americans? Yeah, okay, we're in agreement there, YouTube. Prop up my videos.
Well,
Let's rag on
their
TikTok.
algorithm is totally different for American children than it is for Chinese children. And
Yeah, exactly.
you could see the degradation of our society that's being influenced by these social media programmings, and it's wild. It's crazy.
More promoting Timcast segments and ragging on TikTok. How about that? All right.
Perfect.
I'm going to make a TikTok video tomorrow.
True Social, too.
And True Social, of course. Ginger McIsaac says, Devin, I voted for you. Also started Save the Endangered California Farmer. You were one of my first members. Thanks for all you did for the beleaguered farmers. By the way, Taxifornia refugee now. Yeah.
See, another one.
Another person fled.
Yep.
It's a bummer.
Thank you, by the way.
Tom Baer says, Senate intel on both sides helped spread this hoax. Dick Burr, a drunk hack, Lady G, etc. Durham has always been a cleaner for the regime. See what he did in the Bulger intrigues and the CIA black sites. Facts. I don't know. Maybe.
We'll see. We'll see what Durham comes up with here. We're getting ready for a trial.
Of who's facing trial right now? Who's
Danchenko. Durham's going to be the prosecutor. He's the guy who was the secret Russian source that was actually a Democrat operative.
And a confidential human source.
And that was the joke. We started out with he's the guy who's now the confidential human source that they hid from us.
And Stephen Halper was a confidential human source.
Yep.
Aaron Elizabeth says it's a wish order. We ordered Trump but got Devin. JK, love you, man.
That's rude.
Connecticut is going red. Don't count us out. We are pissed. Yeah. So the other night we were like, we're gonna have a big show tomorrow. And then I guess because Trump was in D.C., everybody was like, Trump, come on, And then when Devin shows up, they were like, oh.
Oh.
Yeah, but now I'm going to be really disappointed now that the TikTokers are going to do better than Colonel Harvey and I.
Yeah, but if it was any other day, Robert Muir says, stop letting others define whom you are. To you, people will say whatever they want about you. There's nothing you can really do about it. It is what it is. But to yourself, you can always know who you are. Richard Leese says, ask Devin if he thinks Obama is pulling all the strings with these scandals.
Yes.
Interesting.
Oh, that was easy.
No, I mean, if you look at who's running the White House right now.
Susan Rice?
Yeah, it's Susan Rice, and Monaco was involved in the Russia hoax, and you have Jake Sullivan. They were all involved in the Russia hoax. They've all been promoted.
Aren't they bringing Podesta back too?
And Podesta's coming back too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they just recycle through. I mean, it's all the same people, and they're all running.
And speaking of recycling, you look at the number of senior FBI and senior Democratic DOJ officials like Baker who go to Facebook or go to Twitter or go to these other social media companies as senior people at those, and then they spend some time there, and then they go back into DNI or someplace like that. There's this relationship. Yep. And we can't seem to get into it.
Obama even said that he would love to come back as president, but not be president, but be the person calling all the shots behind the scenes a couple of years ago. So he's been making statements about this possible reality.
Chris Pavoto says, for anyone else door knocking or with colleagues, talking with colleagues about voting, when the economy and inflation comes up, ask, isn't it crazy why those in control at DC haven't pushed for a federal minimum wage increase? I think it's a good point. You know, the argument, you have a lot of Democrats talking about all these problems, but they're not actually pursuing what many of the Democratic voters are asking for.
Well,
not that I think it'll solve the problem.
I had a voter the other day make the point that the Democrats in Washington, D.C. are doing to their constituents, their policies are undermining and attacking minorities, immigrants of all types, okay, lower income people, because of inflation, their tax structures, the IRS. It's going to go after all of them. It's not going to. Their policies are going after who they claim to be their base.
I mean, look, DC has changed over the, when I first went there. I mean, it used to be, a city where, you had a large African American population, and largely that population has been pushed out into Maryland, and DC's like this new, I don't know if it's got to have one of the highest per capita incomes in the country. I mean, there's new apartment. I mean, there's cranes everywhere. The construction's never stopped, and essentially, the city has become a place for young 1%er liberals.
Yeah. All right, Benjamin Dover. Well, interesting name there, Ben.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Mr. Dover, first name Ben. Railroad is going to strike, and things will get much, much worse. Food, energy, and fuel prices to the moon. Part of me thinks that they will not be able to stop this strike, and part of me thinks they want the strike to happen. Just with how bad everything's gotten, and this idea of the Great Reset, you will own nothing and you'll be happy.
Artificial scarcity.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, oh no, a rail strike, and now there's no food anymore. Whoops.
Yep.
Well, what could they come up with? Because it's a crisis, and they'll take advantage of any crisis to push through new programs and new authorities.
Yeah. Well, they're telling farmers in the Netherlands to stop farming, while they're also saying there's going to be a major food shortage because of Ukraine. So something doesn't add up. Just the way it is. Fire of Destruction says, Tim, I listen while I drive at work. That said, I love the guests you have on. I also listen to The Quartering, and he said he's trying to pass you in subs in today's episode. Well, good for him. I don't know what to say about. I don't really pay attention to any of that stuff. I remember, when we started Timcast IRL, I had two other channels that were, had large followings. And if the whole mentality of starting a channel was we have to get more subs, we have to get bigger, I think you would lose what makes a channel actually work. We did the show because we had fun doing it, and we just keep doing it. And subscriber growth slowed down in an off-season year in primary years, presidential primaries and presidential elections. The subscriber growth is just bonkers because everybody's now wrapped up in politics. So it's gonna get crazy for everybody in politics in this coming year. And then 2024 is going to be insane.
2023 building up to it is going to be
insane.
I
know. It's going to be nuts. I mean, the fact that they're already gearing up for the presidential cycle in 2022 is just like...
Yeah. And numbers don't matter anymore. Your subscribers don't matter. It's the algorithm that matters. And a lot of people go crazy on YouTube just chasing these numbers, and it's not a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. How many subs does Jeremy even have anyway?
No idea.
He's got, he's got 1.29 million subs.
Oh,
good
really
for him.
Close.
Yeah, cool. We like Jeremy. He's a cool dude. He gave us a lot of money when we got swatted. He was
lot of coffee.
selling his coffee. He was like $500. No, I think he gave us more than that, didn't he?
I don't know.
He used multiple channels or something.
Yeah.
All right. Let's grab some more. Of Musically Assured Destruction says, will Putin try to force Ukraine to be neutral? This way nobody has it. I mean, I guess a wasteland is neutral, right?
Yeah, neutrality isn't what he wants.
All right. Iggy the Incubus says, question for Devin. What was the biggest high and low of your time in government? Do you believe that it can still be fixed? If so, how?
Well, a lot of good stories. I think I talked earlier about when I had the best job, to the worst job. But in many ways, as bad as the job was at the end with the Russia hoax, I mean, at least we were able to tell the American people the truth, and at least that's out there. Probably one of my funniest stories in politics was I had a guy. This was when I was first elected. He called the office, and he said, I have a bear in my backyard and he's eating the fruit off my trees. I said, well, there's not really much we can do about it. You got to call Fish and Game, blah, blah, blah. Let us help you. And he said, no, I want you to come out and kill the bear. So finally, I told one of my district director at the time, I said, would you just go? Because we thought maybe the guy was just going a little senile because he sounded like he was really old. And he was really old and went out there. He's an old World War II vet. And got it there. The guy was kind of lonely, and I'll be damned if the bear wasn't there. And so when we tried to work with all the Fish and Game Commission, all these people to try to go kill the damn bear, and usually they would capture it and take it off. And so the guy kept calling. Finally, we just said, okay, screw it. And a couple of guys that I know said, look, we'll just go kill the bear for the guy. And so they went out there to kill the bear, and the guy says, I just like you guys coming out here, and I really don't have any friends. My wife died, and please don't shoot the bear, but will you guys keep coming out and just hang out with me?
Wow.
It was a cool story.
All right, here's one. Liquid Logic says, can Devin Nunes provide insight into why Assange was not pardoned by Trump? And will Trump make a commitment to pardon Assange if he runs in 2024? Trump would win in a landslide by winning independents and moderates.
Oh, that's it. The Assange situation is one that there's just not a lot of information on. I know people are very passionate about it, that, on the kind of that front. But, we just don't, there's so much that is unknown about Assange that, because many people, I think even Sean Hannity went over there, and tried to get him, several prominent people have tried to get Assange to hey, this is your chance. Give us everything you have. And he's never truly came forward with everything that he has.
I would ruin his credibility.
Yeah, I realize, but
he couldn't do it.
But he's it's kind of a catch-22 situation, because if he doesn't do it, then people are going to say he broke the law. I think it's all
BS. I think they go after him like Obama. I think went after more whistleblowers and journalists under the Espionage Act than I think all other presidents combined. If that's the case, Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, they accepted leaks and they published them, but the New York Times does the exact same thing. The issue is that WikiLeaks was just very effective and it was out of their reach. So at the very least, you can look at what they did with Julian Assange in Sweden. They first get him locked up under some ridiculous claims about Swedish, rape laws or something because a condom broke, which is ridiculous. And then ultimately drop those as soon as the U.S. intervenes. And I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, it was Trump that ordered the raid on the Ecuadorian embassy, right?
It was under his administration, I believe. I got to fact check that, to be completely honest.
My view is that I think Trump wanted to bring Assange over here because he knew Assange had answers about what was going on and could provide some evidence and testimony. Assange won't do it because Wikipedia won't. He wouldn't give up his credibility.
There was allegedly an offer from the Trump administration asking Assange to reveal his sources of the leak, and Assange said he wouldn't do that. That's the story allegedly that we heard from a mutual friend of ours.
Yep.
I'm not sure Trump was involved in any of it. I'm not sure it would get to his level.
It was under his administration.
Right. No, I understand.
I mean, He's publicly talked about WikiLeaks.
Well,
and later said he didn't know a lot
this is
about
the
it.
conflicting part. He said he loved WikiLeaks. He loved what Julian Assange did. He promoted the leaks, and he came out there on the campaign, and he was like all for it. And then when he was asked about it later on during his political career, he was like, Julian Assange who? WikiLeaks who? And he acted like he didn't know who they were. So there's a big difference between his later
Ross-
statements and his earlier statements.
I don't know a whole lot about the Ross Ulbricht thing. I think you might know more than that.
Yes,
More-
that's a big case as well.
But people are saying he should be pardoned. He should have been pardoned. Assange
Yes,
should have
absolutely.
been pardoned.
FreeRoss.org, I think, has a website detailing that particular circumstance, which also is egregious from my point of view.
I think Trump should have pardoned all nonviolent drug offenders, like who didn't plead down. So it's like people who had, varying degrees of pot. He's just meant like we're pardoning all of it.
Yeah,
This-
there's a lot of people that definitely deserved pardons, but Kodak Black, definitely makes you wonder
Gave
what
some
was going
people
on
pardon.
there.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the Bannon stuff? The accusations that he was swindling money or whatever from Trump supporters.
I mean, look, that was it's New York that's going after him. Blue state, deep blue. He was already pardoned federally. They didn't seem to ever have a case against him, and I think he's being targeted.
I think it's.
look at how you've got the same people that are going after Trump. You've got the same people, they're doing the same thing in Georgia. It's the weaponization of the justice system. And I mean, look, if you're going to go after people for, look, what Bannon has said publicly about this over and over again, he hasn't hid from it. He's been from what I can tell, very transparent about what they were doing. Look, it's not something that I would do, but it just seems like he's a political target.
By this standard, you'd have to be investigating, charging, and bringing to prosecution thousands of these nonprofit people. Thousands.
Yeah.
But the standard's not being applied across the board. It's selective.
Yep. Dan Inez says, I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today is from Popeye. The character's name is Wimpy. In the Robin Williams movie, he even sings a song about it. Oh, well,
Who knows this stuff?
oh, the audience knows everything. It's the wisdom of the crowd, man.
They really do.
Wimpy. Is there
This is
a-
crowdsourcing.
That's
yeah,
right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Man, a lot of people pointing out that they're not getting notifications anymore. And, we're working on a mobile app. And so I'm just imagining it's going to be great. Y'all will download the mobile app, and then at like 7:55, a little thing will go, and it'll be like, we're live in 5 minutes. Come hang out. That would be super cool.
As long as you can get on the Google Play Store
Yeah, I think
and
it's
Apple App
fine.
Store.
We'll see, though. That's crazy how they do that, though. But
We're still waiting. We're on the Apple App Store, but we're not on the Google Play Store.
Why don't you-
Even though we have a very family-friendly,
just
clean
put it on the
platform.
website. You can put the APQ on your website.
Yeah, we actually have that,
Oh,
where you
okay.
can go do it. But like if you're under the age of 40, 45, people that have Androids know how to do that. But if you're like my dad's age, you don't know. You only know how to use the Google Play Store.
Yeah.
Makes
That's
it very
true.
complicated.
They're just it's attrition. Making it hard enough to hinder you is good enough,
Right.
Wise guy is a dick says don't do a steam engine, do a wood powered gasifier. You can use hydrogen gas to power everything. Really? Well, I don't know how that would work. The only thing that I can think of in my mind that I could probably build from scratch is like is a steam engine, because it's like a relatively simple thing to build. Granted, I'm not talking about actually like making the metals or anything, but I could like buy the parts, and I have a general concept of how to make a steam engine. But I don't know what a gasifier is. I actually watched a YouTube video on how to make a steam engine. It's really cool. They had a glass one, and it's like a little Bunsen burner or a little candle, and then it just makes a piston spin a wheel. Good fun stuff, steam engine stuff.
We
love
used
that.
to have thousands and thousands of little dams and all these creeks and little rivers. Wisconsin, Illinois, a lot of communities had them. They generated electricity just for their small towns. They're all gone. But if we want a clean energy,
Yeah, why don't we do that? The water just keeps flowing.
Yep.
And if you don't have the water, you die anyway. So what will you care about electricity? You got to leave.
Oh, but there's probably a minnow there we need to protect.
Yeah, that's what's happening right now in the Delta, right? The fish.
Delta
No, that's the smelt.
Boops,
Delta
boops.
smelt.
Yes.
What?
My favorite
Boops,
fish.
boops?
Yes, its species name is Boops Boops. Look it up. Fact check me on
Boops,
it. I love
boops?
it. The Delta smelt. Yes. You're welcome.
Boops.
You're welcome.
All right, let's grab some more super chats. Mission says, I'm originally from Fresno, California. They love Devin Nunes out there. He will be missed. Thank you, sir. Why do people call Sanger CA the chancula The chancla. Always wondered.
Chancla?
Chancla? Is that what it is?
I can't
Chancla?
see it. It's the print. It's too small
It's
there.
the flip flop, the chancla.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, Sanger is a beautiful little city. Lots of homeless there now too, just like my home city, but not far from where I live.
Oh yeah. I want to mention real quick too before we wrap up. I think we're going to do a car giveaway. We're going to be we're planning it, and more information to come soon. It's going to be really fun. Really fun.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing an RV giveaway as well.
You done with your RV, Luke?
Yeah, it'll be good to upgrade.
What kind of car? Electric?
2004 Chevy Cobalt with 216,000 miles on it.
Okay, yeah.
So we have this so here's what happened.
Hey, someone could use it.
We were at a car dealer. I don't think it can move, but we were at a car dealership, and we were getting a new work vehicle, and then someone traded it in, and then we looked at it, and it was like and then I think my brother was just like, "How much do you want for that?" And it was like a couple $100. They were like, "I guess trading it in, but there's no real value to it. You can take it now." And so now we have this just ridiculous car for no reason. And then I was like, we should do a giveaway, like a sweepstakes, and we'll make an ad for it, because I always see these ads on Facebook where it's like, you could win a Maserati. And so we're gonna do you could win this car, and it's got 216,000 miles on it. Hey man.
Actually, Colonel Harvey's got several of those. He's into collecting Cherokee Jeeps.
Yeah, I have a 92, a 96, and a 98 Jeep Cherokee Sports, and one's really nice. I mean, I got it lifted up, and it's good for off-road.
Right on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, become a member. We're going to have that members-only show coming up for you about 11 p.m. And also, if you are ever using Spotify, you can add our songs, Will of the People and Only Ever Wanted, to your playlists. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me at Timcast. Devin, do you want to shout anything out?
Hey, just thanks a lot. It's been a real pleasure to be out here, and we're looking forward to having you down in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming, man. It's been fun.
Solar panels, steam engines, whatever you need.
Derek, you've been on the show several times, but do you want to shout anything out? You're running for office too, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm running for county commissioner in Washington County, right here where we're at. And if you want to check me out or make a donation online, it's at votederekharvey.com. That's DEREKHARVEY.
Awesome. My YouTube channel is We Are Change, and it's something really weird and strange is going on there. But if you want to see my information downloads with my co-host Atlas, you can. YouTube.com/We Are Change. Hope to see you there. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys very much for tuning in this evening. We very much appreciate it as always. Even though you didn't get the notification, you guys can follow me on Twitter and minds.com at Sarah Petchlitz, as well as sarahpetchlitz.me.
We'll see all of you at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye, guys.